Honorable Minister of Mineral Resources, go ahead, Montage.
Thank you, Speaker.
Deputy.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. When you
very
act, you should resume your authority. The question by Honorable Luzipo is about a newly gazetted mining charter achieving the objective of stimulating the economy. The gazetting of the mining charter has removed one of the most pronounced source of policy and regulatory uncertainty, which led to the Fraser Institute rating South Africa number 81 out of 91 countries when it comes to policy certainty. Now, this has an impact on investment attractiveness of South Africa, so we understand that the removal of uncertainty on its own is not sufficient. Hence, setting up the team working on competitiveness, sustainability, and transformation, directing and working together with the sector, focusing on mining and therefore contribute to the economic performance of the sector. That is the answer to that question.
Thank you. Honorable Luzipo.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and thanks to the Minister with the answer. Based and in light of this historical achievement, in terms of the consensus reached on the mining charter, the question then is, what are the key commitments by social partners to charter compliance and implementation? The question is in relation to one of the key challenges in terms of the implementation of the charter was the question of where compliance lies and responsibility for its proper implementation. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Compliance is not something that comes automatically. It also requires enforcement. So what we are looking at as a ministry and a department is to strengthen our monitoring of compliance. Therefore, if we are strong enough in enforcing compliance, it will happen. If we are weak as a department, people are not going to comply because many people don't see compliance with the charter as a business imperative. They saw as just a tick checkbox, and as a result of that, you find that people comply maliciously with the charter. Now we'll have to enforce, monitor on an ongoing basis.
Thank you. Honorable Mente.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Baumquad, since the first mining charter was introduced in 2004, we know as a matter of fact that white foreign-owned mining companies have failed to comply with the mining charter. This is the nature of charters across the board. They fail because they are not legislated. And we will never reach transformation targets without these targets being legislated as acts of parliament. On what legislative basis was the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act Amendment Bill withdrawn? Why did you withdraw it?
Honorable Minister.
The amendments of the MPRDA have been in Parliament since 2013. They were drafted in 2012. Now, if you have amendments that remain on the table for more than 5 years, the first thing that will happen is that the amendments themselves will become irrelevant. Number two, even now, those amendments were not going to pass because in the NCOP, division reflected that they were not going to pass. Instead, they would proscribe with the rising of the fifth parliament. So on that basis, we rather start from scratch and deal with the sector properly and appropriately.
Okay. Honorable Lorima.
Minister, you've said that this charter of yours will unlock investment, and we disagree. Now, if this charter does not unlock significant investment within a year, and significant is, say, 25% increase, will you admit that you were wrong and that you've caused us to miss out on job creation, and will you resign?
Honorable Minister.
No, Mr. Lorima is putting the cart before the horse. If you were part of the investment conference, if you were in part of the investment conference, you would have seen the change of the attitude in mining. And their active participation in the investment conference indicate to us that there is a fundamental change in the industry that was very negative all the time. You know, the 71 billion rand that you said, where does it come from? From Anglo. It is an investment that Anglo says we are unlocking it, we are putting it back to the industry because the environment is correct. So already there's no need to be negative about the industry and the country because pointers are to the opposite direction.
Thank you. Honorable Esther Hazen.
Thank you, Jay. Honourable Minister, the new charter admittingly addresses some of the key investor issues, but what was the reasoning behind the concept of implementation of guidelines introduced, as there is no clarity as what these guidelines will cover and what their legal status will be? Is this just not another prime example of how government complicates and in a way destroys the degree of certainty in regard to the policy framework? That was the purpose of this charter in the first place. Don't you agree, Minister, and what are you going to do to remedy this? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Guidelines are a framework for implementation. And if you don't have a framework for implementation, you are not ready to implement. So those guidelines are going to provide a framework that we should follow in implementing. And we're actually developing them as a department. We are discussing with the industry to also be part of it. Actually, you are going to see that the industry has not only stuck to the charter, we have also started developing a framework on competitiveness, sustainability, and transformation for the industry. So the guidelines will guide us so that we can be able to execute within a framework that is concrete.
Thank you. We now move to question 155, asked by Honorable DJ Menir to the Minister of Finance. I have been informed that the Deputy Minister will be answering questions on behalf of the Minister. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think the answer is straightforward on this one, that the Minister of Finance will utilize the communication services of the department, which includes media liaison, because the question is whether he had appointed a media liaison officer or not.
Okay. Honorable Menir.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We all know that the Honourable Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, is a danger to himself on social media. His postings include a fruit salad of views on the economy, which includes a flirtation with radical economic transformation. So will the Deputy Minister please tell us whether the Minister actually supports extending state ownership over the mining sector and establishing a sovereign wealth fund, and whether the Minister will use the communications department to which the Deputy Minister referred to take control of his social media accounts to save himself further embarrassment and any further flirtations with radical economic transformation.
Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. My understanding is that the media liaison, as the question has been raised, is about liaison between Parliament and the Ministry. And that liaison, its content will always serve the traditional purpose for which it is established. And whatever that will be communicated in public will always be the policy and the day-to-day decisions of the institution at all material times. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mkalipi.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Minister, how National Treasurer and the Minister communicates with the media is open for discussion. But how the Department and Minister communicates with Parliament is determined by the rules and regulations. And the Minister is required to respond to questions for written reply in Parliament. In August, Deputy Minister, I don't know if you are still a mayor, the EFF asked the Minister of Finance how many Deputy Director Generals and Senior Directors are employed by the department and how many of those are women. It is now 2 months later, we still haven't got a response. It should take less than 30 minutes to compile such information if you know what you are doing in your department, unless if you are still a mayor of Egurule. Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. My understanding is that Ministry, its purpose is for strategic leadership. And there's always machinery for the effective execution of that task. And that task is not about knowing every ones and twos in the department. It's about ensuring that you steer the institution in the proper direction where it's supposed to go. And I think as far as that is concerned, the Minister is doing that very well. But with regard to the Deputy General and all those, we can follow those up for you if you still need them.
Let's have Honorable Abraham.
Point of order.
Yes,
Deputy
what's the
Speaker,
point of
sorry.
order?
I don't think, Deputy Speaker, we must accept such a dismissal as Parliament. I think if the Deputy Minister doesn't know what he's doing in the department, he must just say, I don't know. He mustn't come and tell us here that those are not his responsibilities. His responsibility is strategic leadership. Parliament mustn't accept to be dismissed by deputy ministers. If you don't know, just say, hey guys, I don't know, which will just expose that we're paying you for nothing.
Yeah, okay, all right. Honorable Deputy Minister.
I wish I could ask Honorable Lozi the names of the branch leaders of the FF in Egurule to tell me now. No, he will not. Who are they? The point is that Thank you very much. I think the answer I've given, Deputy Speaker, I'm actually satisfied with it, that the purpose of this office is strategic leadership, and it will always be guided by the technical expertise that are actually deployed for that purpose.
Honorable Deputy Minister, you insist you will reply to that answer as it is said. Let's take that as your response. The other one really, yeah, okay, all right. Okay. Honorable Smith.
Chair.
Okay.
Honorable.
Honorable Ndandis. Okay, yes. Honorable Member, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. We believe as the African National Congress that it is correct for the Deputy Minister to share information with Parliament. And equally, we believe that it is good for the department to share information with communities. If the better part or most part of the communities use social media, then we really feel as the African National Congress that the ministry is in the right direction. We, however, wish to state that for now, if the ministry makes use of the departmental communication to get messages across, then for the moment, that is cost saving.
Honorable
However,
Member, I'm afraid your time has expired. We'll
Thank you.
consider yours as a comment and
Thank
not a
you.
question. Honorable Schmidt. Who's Honorable H.C. Smith? He's not here, we're passing. Oh, you done, okay. Let's proceed to the next question. Asked by Honorable Yako to the Minister of Mineral Resources. Honorable Minister of Mineral Resources, Honorable Koyade Mantashe, there's question 182 asked of you by Honorable Yako.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Comrade Honorable Yako, want to know if we had a meeting in Australia where we agreed to fast-track mining developments in Kolobeni. The reality of the matter is a delegation, a South African delegation, went to what is called Africa Down Under, which is an equivalent of the mining in the harbour in Australia. And went there, and our message was very simple. South Africa is a good investment destination. In the process, we talked to various mining companies, and not particularly one about Kolobeni. There is no commitment we've made about Kolobeni. We made a commitment that South Africa is a good investment destination, particularly in mining. And therefore, in that process, meeting various mining companies, we encourage them to come to invest. Let me talk a little bit about Kolobeni. You see, the issue of Kolobeni has been on the table since 2002. No decision is taken or executed. It is my commitment, not to anybody else, that that issue must be concluded the sooner the better. Whatever way, rather than keeping it hanging all the time from 2002 to 2018 for 16 years. It is a bad way of dealing with investors.
Honorable Schmidt? Honorable Yako, yes, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Constitutional Court, in its recent ruling of the right of communities to have their land, even if the land holds minerals, began by quoting Fanon in The Riches of the Earth, and which states, for a colonized people, the most essential value, because the most concrete, is first and foremost the land. The land with which it will bring them bread and above all, dignity. The Constitutional Court judge then went on to say the existence of a mineral right does not itself extinguish the right of a landowner or any other occupier of the land in question. The ruling of the court will prevent communities from being evicted without their consent. Does this in any way affect your approach in how you engage with the people of Kolobeni? And if yes, how will this engage your engagements?
Honorable Minister.
I've been to Kolobeni physically. I'm not reading about it. And in Kolobeni, we met the communities, 9 organizations, majority of which were village trusts, which expressed their interest in mining in Kolobeni. There is the Kolobeni Crisis Committee, which is opposed to it, which tried to disrupt that meeting. And one of the issues that we could not accede to is to deprive the people of Kolobeni to speak for themselves. We stopped, we couldn't agree to that, and we engaged them. We continue to engage the crisis committee in Kolobeni. We're setting up a meeting with them, we'll talk to them, because,
the honorable members.
Okay,
order.
thank you very much. Now, the court order, I responded to that yesterday and said that is in line with the law. There's nothing new in that. They must be consulted. That's why after visiting all the major mining areas, one of the findings we made was that mining companies must consult with communities more thoroughly before they start mining and on an ongoing basis. That debate is on the table for the sector.
On a point of order, Speaker.
What's your point of order?
My point of order is that he did not hear the question that I asked. Therefore, he did not answer the question that I asked. He did not consult with the people of Xolobeni. That is what he's telling me now. So can he answer the question that I asked?
Honorable member, the minister has responded to you. If you are unhappy,
Speaker, he did not answer the question that I asked.
if you are
He did not listen to the question that I asked. Therefore, he did not answer it. So he must answer the question that I asked. And I can repeat the question if maybe he did not hear it. Maybe let me repeat the question. Maybe he will answer the question.
No.
Let me repeat it.
No, I'm saying no. Honorable Minister, what's your response to that?
Actually, the mistake that Honorable Liako is making.
Oh, the honorable member, you will keep quiet whilst the minister responds to you. No, you stop heckling.
No, they don't want to respect. They're playing to the gallery. I can't help them from that. Now, the issue is mining companies must consult communities. That is what that judgment says. It doesn't say the minister must. It requires mining companies to consult with communities. We agree with that. We agree with that. And all we are saying is that that consultation must not only be before the license is given, it must be before the license is given and on an ongoing basis. Actually, it is in the interest of a mining company to consult because it must coexist with those communities.
Honorable Smith.
Honourable Minister, following your recent unfortunate incident with Attorney Richard Spoor found himself in being arrested at the Xolobeni community meeting you had, the issue in Xolobeni has a great deal to do with inadequate compensation offered to people who lose their land to mining. Now the question is, Minister, are you planning to address this inadequacy, either by law or by regulation, and more importantly, by when? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
The problem, something that attracts attention, leads easily to distortion. Xolobeni, the mining company that has done exploration there, has not yet been given a mining license. Okay, so it is at a stage where it must be consulting, and only then will we process the application for a mining license. At this point in time, as we sit here, that license has not been issued. But the company was given the right to explore, it has done exploration, it must consult, and then we process the application.
Point of order, Deputy Speaker.
Yes, what's the point of order?
Deputy Speaker, the EFF raised a question which I think is very fundamental to the Minister. But the Minister, according to his response, is saying to this House, mining companies should self-regulate. Now, no, just wait, please, noisemakers. People of South Africa did not elect mining companies. They elected these members of this parliament to regulate and ensure that people are not just evicted by these people. Because go to Richards Bay, how many people have been killed there by these multinationals who are not properly regulated? Do we want the same thing to happen in Xolobeni?
No, honourable member.
No.
Honourable member.
Deputy Speaker, yes. Allow us as Parliament to do justice on this matter.
Yes, I'm allowing you to do that.
Yes.
But not in this way. There is a way that has been agreed that will be used now.
What way?
They are
What
going
way?
to be asked questions.
Can I be
Honourable
helped?
member.
What way?
Honourable Mhlongo, you are unhappy with the answer of the minister, all right?
No, the minister is saying.
No, honourable member.
Mining companies. What way?
Honourable member, you are unhappy with the answer and the quality of the answer. That's a political issue.
People
the minister
did not elect mining companies.
Take your seat, honourable member. We go to the next. Honourable Estesen, please go ahead. Honorable Esterhuizen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. At Colomani, the mineral sand resources generated a profit of 150 million last year, Honourable Minister, but they did not spend a cent as was promised on a community upliftment and a responsible program. Yet in your new mining charter, you gazetted that said that the policy is that communities will have a share in the profits, but in practice this does not happen. You also just said that the community must have a say in the mining operations. This company, Torman, expanded their mining activities, causing cliffs and dunes to collapse. Why are you so determined, Minister, you are on the record to say that even against a court order that this company will proceed? Does this mean so little to the people of Colombia that this ANC government, that you are prepared to put profits before the people's
Honourable
lives?
Member, your time unfortunately has ended. Honourable Minister.
What you cannot answer is something that is not factual. There is no mining happening in Colobane. There is no mining happening in Colobane. Therefore, there can be nothing accruing to the community before mining takes place. Number two, in the charter, we're making provision for shareholding and benefits to accrue to communities. The reason we did that in the latest charter is because in the past there was no such a provision except the social labor plan. Now we're extending the benefits accruing to communities beyond just the social labor plan. There's the social labor plan, and there will be benefits that accrue to companies that are equivalent to 5% of shareholding. So that cannot happen before mining starts. So there can be no benefits accruing in Colobane because there's no mining taking place there.
Honorable Matala.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and also the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, can you take the nation into confidence about what you are intending to do at Colobane, despite the fact that there are opposing views, the pros and the anti-mining? Do you have any intentions to proceed in processing the applications? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
In mining, if there are people who are opposed and those who agree, we'll have to test the views of the people. Actually, in the department, we are even discussing the possibility of a survey in a community where mining is happening if there are disagreement. Many say we'll create a precedent. We say it's a necessary precedent because it is important for us to ensure that we don't only give in to the right to say no and destroy the right to say yes. If there is a right to say no, there must equally be a right to say yes. But if there are disagreements, we must test the extent of that disagreement. So in Colobane, what is needed in Colobane is not just mining, it is development, because Colobane is in Ward 25 of Pisana, which is the poorest ward in Pisana. So that ward requires development, not mining. Mining can be an element of it. Mining will be an element of that, but what you need in Colobane is overall development and access to Colobane in terms of roads and other networks.
Okay. Members, we move to question 185 that has been asked by Honorable Pikinini to the Minister of Economic Development. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Honorable members, the question relates to monopolies, cartels, and dominance by large corporations. Prohibited acts may take the form of excessive prices, price discrimination, collusion between firms, and predatory pricing. The World Bank earlier this year issued a report in which it estimates that in just one of these kinds of acts, namely excessive pricing, or what it terms markups above normal profits, it's estimated to be close to 10% of South Africans' GDP. In other words, what it shows is the deep damage caused by monopolies and abuse of dominance by large firms. In the last 9 years, the Commission has intensified its action against cartels, exposing and breaking up cartels and collusive actions in sectors like construction, steel, car carriers, fertilizer, wheat and maize meat milling, fishing, poultry, furniture removals, fire protection systems, and media advertising. One of the early cartels to be broken up was in the food industry, covering chicken and bread, which resulted in mandatory lower prices for bread for a period and a large fine, half of which was put into a fund to grow firms in the agro-processing industry. For example, Kucha Dairy in the Eastern Cape, Pastryman in KZN, Prima Bake in Northwest, and Vergezorg Plant Oils in Free State, and 38 other largely small businesses that were promoted through this. In abuse of dominance cases, the Commission had some success. For example, in an excessive pricing case against Sasol in the fertilizer industry, the Commission found that Sasol controlled an entire pipeline from production of ammonium nitrate to blending it to produce fertilizers to selling it directly to farmers through a network of contracted agents. The settlement resulted in the breakup of this arrangement. Sasol had to dispose of 5 of its 6 blending operations and not limit its agents from carrying out the products, carrying the products of competitors. Now, I raise this, honorable members, because a subsequent study by the Competition Commission found that customers of granular fertilizers benefited by about R1 billion in lower prices, and one of its competitors invested a further R1.4 billion in a new nitric acid plant. And smaller players in the market grew from 15 before the settlement to 65 after the settlement. I can cite other examples. For example, consumers of telecom products benefited from R331 million in lower prices over a 4-year period as a result of the outcome of an abuse of dominance case. In many merger cases, conditions have been put on merger parties to combat monopolies and fight abuse of dominance. They include the arrangements through the court judgment in the Walmart Massmart matter and agreements with large beverage companies. I illustrated a few examples of excellent work done by the competition authorities over the past 10 years. While there's been many successes, it's also clear that the vision of an inclusive economy set out in the preamble to the Competition Act has not been fully achieved. Economic concentration and economic exclusion remains a concern in the economy. In order to strengthen the Commission and Tribunal's capacity, Honourable Piccinini, and to deal with economic concentration and exclusion, this House last week considered amendments to the Competition Act. For example, the bill, for the first time in our law, puts in place a provision to deal with abuse of buyer power dominance in the economy. This provision would ensure that where a dominant firm imposes unfair trading conditions or unfair prices, that the competition authorities have the necessary powers to deal with it.
Honourable Minister, hold on there, your time has expired. Let's get the next. Honourable Piccinini.
Minister, as a case study on the merger transaction involving Coca-Cola, can the Minister share with us how the Department and the Competition Commission dealt with conditionalities related to small medium enterprise development and inclusion?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Piccinini. It's a very interesting case study to show how the Competition Act can promote small business. Coca-Cola decided to combine 3 of its bottling operations, and it needed regulatory permission, and thereafter it bought the shares that AB InBev had, it brought it back, and that required regulatory approval. So what did we do? The first thing, in the merger approvals, we put in a clause that requires Coca-Cola, where it owns the fridges or cooler units in small spaza shops, and where it has locked spaza shop owners into exclusive arrangements. We said to them, open it up. Make 10% of that fridge space available to small players and to competitors. Another example, we got Coca-Cola to put 400 million rand into promoting small-scale farmers, black farmers, into its supply chain. Another example, we got them to put a further 400 million rand into township enterprises to provide support to small retailers. Another example, we got Coca-Cola to agree to increase the level of black ownership by black South Africans in Coca-Cola South Africa. It went up, or it's going up. The commitment is to increase it from 11% to 30% over a period. And final example, Deputy Speaker, of that is Coca-Cola had the main shareholding. They bought over Appetizer, the brand. And we got them to source from smaller farmers grapes, and we hope with time also other fruits, so that we localize, we create jobs in South Africa, and we support small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, what is government doing in respect of addressing foreign-owned companies that operate in South Africa, that actually flout South African labor legislation and exploit South African labor? They find themselves loopholes around compliance with BBEE certification and engage in anti-competitive behavior. How does government intend addressing this? Where can members of the public report such type of behavior of such companies? Where can they go for investigations? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much for the question, Honorable Member. The conduct that the member described is one that is harmful to the South African economy and to South Africans more generally. It falls outside the Competition Act, but it is the kind of conduct that we need to ensure is not left uninvestigated. In respect of labor laws, the kind of conduct where foreign firms don't comply with our labor laws, exploit South African workers, is something that Minister Oliphant and the Department of Labor would be able to address. We've also made some changes to the labor legislation recently. Parliament considered that, and it included the introduction of a national minimum wage. Secondly, in respect of BEE compliance, very important to ensure that our economy is inclusive, that we bring South Africans, black South Africans, into ownership. There, the relevant department is run by Minister Rob Davies. It's the Department of Trade and Industry, and they have measures in place to deal with that. So I think, thank you, Honourable Member, for bringing that issue up. Very important that we address it, and those are the two mechanisms by which we can deal with those. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Kubisa.
Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. Honourable Minister, perhaps the legal framework could be there, but the problem could be that of capacitation, whereby SMEs are not able to break the ceiling, get into the industry of dominance and collusion, because there is no ongoing capacitation. Do you feel that the Competition Commission is doing enough to ensure that it comes nearer to the SMEs? Because one of the issues could be the issue of literacy. With regard to the language concerned in the legal framework, is there enough that is done to ensure that these SMEs are able to attend to their issues on their own in regard to the legislative framework that is available? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kubisa. speaking to the competition authorities, it's clear to me that they are very sensitive to the issue of ensuring that small businesses are able to access the services. But they themselves recognize that we have not done enough. And so what are we doing now? The first thing we've done is we've put to Parliament amendments to the Competition Act that gives the competition authorities greater power to focus on small business issues, including a requirement on them when we do market inquiries to ensure that small businesses are properly represented. Secondly, we've committed that once Parliament has finalized the Competition Amendment Bill, we're going to do a popular booklet for small businesses identifying how they can access the services of the competition authorities. And we're going to make the changes available in all the official languages. The third area is to work closely between ourselves and the Ministry of Small Business Development to ensure that small businesses with legitimate concerns and complaints, and there are many, are in fact, their hands are held during the competition process so that they can access the remedies that Parliament has put in place. And I think I look forward to the completion of the amendments to the Competition Act because it is the most comprehensive attempt by Parliament and government, of course, to address the problems of small business and competition. And during the course of Parliament considering this, under the leadership of Honourable Coleman, who is the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, many small businesses gave evidence of the kind of problems that they have with price discrimination, with abuse of dominance, with excessive pricing, with margin squeeze that keeps them out of markets. And the changes to the Competition Act directly speak to these, directly seek to address the problems of small business. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Hlonyani.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, regardless of what is said, nothing has been done to break down the monopolies that control South Africa's economy and permanently engaged in anti-competitive behavior. The big four banks in South Africa, Standard Bank, First Rand, ABSA, and Nedbank, owns 88% of all banking assets in the country. And this is just one example. MultiChoice is even worse and has 98% of the pay TV market. The Competition Commission has failed, and regardless of the acts introduced, the only long-term solution to economic concentration in this country is for the state to break up monopolies. Do you agree? And if you do, how should we go about breaking up the monopolies? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Monopolies impose enormous costs on an economy. So there's clearly, not only from the point of view of the Freedom Charter, but just when you look at the economic evidence in our economy and elsewhere, they impose costs. So what does the law currently say? The law deals with conduct. What it doesn't deal with is economic structure. So the competition authorities have to operate within the law, and they have pursued conduct by large companies that is damaging to the economy and that is outside of what is legally permitted. But that doesn't resolve the issue of structure, economic structure. So we've brought a package of amendments to Parliament, and we had strong support in the Portfolio Committee. The committee voted in favour. It came to the National Assembly in the second reading debate last week, and I'm delighted to know, to see that we had overwhelming support in the National Assembly for that package of proposals that includes dealing with economic structure, so that when you have high levels of concentration, and remember, monopolies are the highest level of economic concentration you can get, but not only monopolies classically defined, any very high level of economic concentration that excludes South Africans, excludes small businesses, that limits the ability of medium-sized businesses to get into the economy, would be the subject of investigation by the competition authorities, and Parliament has given them the right to take the necessary action. I see the honourable members from the EFF is saying, what can the competition authorities do about it? if there are no other remedies, the law in fact would now permit, once it's passed by the NCOP, the law would permit, if there are no other remedies, for the break-up of highly concentrated sectors and firms in order to stimulate competition, advance economic inclusion, and bring more South Africans into the economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is asked by Honorable Tengwa to the Minister of Finance. Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The question is very important. Thanks, Honorable Schlever, for the question. I think the question is about how do we respond in terms of ensuring that the state of governance in the financial sector is in place, taking into account the background of VBS. What we want to say is that what is key is that we've always had, there are a number of measures that ensure that our financial sector stays credible to the investors, domestic and foreign. It takes form of institutions that are appropriate for that purpose. In other words, in that instance, it's auditing firms, auditing units, internal and external. In the case of VBS, internally, you had PwC, externally you had KPMG, for instance. It also takes legislative measures that ensure that, amongst others, liquidity of these institutions is subjected to a set of regulations so that they stay liquid within the set percentages. In this instance, some of the institutions that are key is your Prudential Authority, which is responsible for ensuring that various financial institutions stick to particular minimums with regard to liquidity, and also there's FISCA that ensures that financial services adhere to Matupili principle in that sector. All those have always been in what you call in place. It is very difficult for Reserve Bank, even Treasury, to each and every minute be in each and every what you call institution. In this instance, it is also important for honorable members to remember here what we had in VBS, for instance. We had well-qualified people, proper institutions in place to demonstrate that we're never very far away from it. Around May, when Reserve Bank observed that this institution had suddenly moved from a 400 million bank to a 2 million bank, and then Reserve Bank suddenly actually put the institution very close and monitored it up until they were able to observe when it entered into a liquidity crisis. And appropriate interventions were done on time. All I'm saying, we will continue, Honorable Shlewa, to do what we do. South African Reserve Bank and the various institutions I've mentioned will continue to do inspection, monitor, evaluate, and respond to these institutions. General, I dare want to say, the financial sector in South Africa has got a very credible record, except those isolated incidents like VBS. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Tengwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Minister, I appreciate the narrative in terms of what it is that you are doing, but that was not the question, because I think the fundamental issue here is we need to borrow from this experience and then chart a way moving forward. So you've spelled out the crisis quite well, and it's precisely why I asked the question, that will you actually undertake an assessment of these banking practices, even periodically, to ensure that systems are adhered to ensure that the checks and balances are actually functional, because it can't be that we'll only react to crisis. Prevention is better than cure. We have had the same problem with Itala Bank, where it was pillaged. We've had African Bank and so on. So at every instance when this happens, why is it that the intervention is always the reaction? And then it begs the question, why are you afraid of the banks? Actually challenge the banks, take them head on, so that we can actually safeguard and protect the collective interests of our people. But this constant thing of wanting to wait for inhlekelele first and then an intervention, such is wrong. So will you undertake an intervention and take us into confidence so that we can help you take on these banks? Niwasaba nama bank.
Deputy Minister.
I want to repeat, Honorable Chairman, that your question remains important, but I want to say, if the manner in which our banks were regulated and supervised was as articulated, I'm sure we could be in the worst crisis now. We've been getting credits, we've been rated globally in terms of how we run our financial sector. I think I want to insist on that. South Africa has got a credible record in as far as that is concerned. Does it mean sometimes there are no slippages? VBS could be one of the areas where what could have appeared an oversight, in spite of saying that we had auditing institutions qualified and established, and then there were regulatory relationships. If you read the report, you will find that some of them, those who actually stole money there, do acknowledge that they actually misrepresented their reports, which had a potential and ability to actually mislead the regulatory institutions like South African Reserve Bank. But however, we commit to improve in this matter. And the one point I want to make is that already Ndadematau has actually issued a report. There's a lot of processes that are taking place, and we continue to learn whatever weaknesses that are going to be exposed by that, and we'll actually commit to do better as we go on.
Honorable Lees.
Deputy Minister, we know that there are restrictions on municipalities in investing in mutual banks. Will the Minister propose amendments to banking regulations to prevent banks taking unlawful deposits from municipalities? And if so, what are the details?
Deputy Minister.
I think I want to say, Honorable Member, that various financial institutions will always be designed for particular purposes. And there's a historic reasons why different financial institutions are meant for particular purposes. For instance, a mutual bank like VBS, which is in terms of the law, not allowed to deal with fully fledged business like commercial banks are doing, so that it can be run in a particular way. There is a reason. But however, if there is an increasing demand that these banks be re-legislated to do in response to service demand, work differently, I think we'll always be open to that. But let me say even to this one. By the way, VBS was advised when it was discovered that there's actually depositing by municipalities, that they have got a right to actually apply for a different what to call license, something they did not do. All I'm trying to say is that there has always been open-mindedness, whatever intervention, be it legislative, as long as it continues to improve the soundness of our financial institutions in South Africa and ensuring that our sovereign rating stays where it's supposed to be.
Thank you. Honorable Ndlozi.
Yeah, thanks, Honorable Deputy Speaker. You know, in the history of South Africa in the last 30 years, there's never been a bank that was placed under curatorship and within 1 year declared liquidated or was liquidated. Alpha Bank only collapsed 3 years after it was placed under curatorship, while many placed under curatorship were saved. Cash Investment Bank was saved, African Bank was saved, Community Bank was saved, and Cash Bank was saved, amongst others. Is National Treasury going to take responsibility for the collapse of VBS? And why is there such a rush to liquidate VBS when we are clear on who stole money and there are processes to make sure that those people are held responsible, including criminal prosecution. If all of that is clear, why kill a good initiative like VBS Mutual Bank? Why shut it down? Is it because it's in the hands of rural and black people or not? Thank you.
Time has expired. Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. I just want to say to Honorable Dons, we will never take pleasure or get excited when any of our institutions collapse. Whatever that institution is, because it doesn't send a good message about our country. I think that point is very important. We can't be happy even about this one, in particular VBS, because the services that VBS has been providing are services that established banks do not want to call, do not provide. So you cannot be happy when you have an institution which has been taking forward one of our strategic goals of financial inclusion. So we can't be happy about that. But having said that, even in that instance, with those noble intentions, law must always take its course. For instance, in South Africa, all institutions, as I've said, various financial institutions have got key imperatives that determine whether they continue to exist or not. Even when VBS, when they apply to become a bank, they have to meet particular requirements. Once you meet those requirements, you get a license. You must stay within the framework of those requirements. When you don't, there's always going to be intervention in terms of the law to sustain the credibility of the South African financial system. The attitude of Treasury in this instance is that we want to be part of the process of ensuring that the services that people of Venda and others used to get from that bank, there must be a way in which they were to call. They are sustained and retained. And if VBS gets saved, we will be excited if it does that. But whether VBS gets saved or not, as an institution, different from a service, depends on whether they will meet the commercial imperatives that are establishing them as the nature of bank that they are. In other words, lastly, this bank was in the hands of qualified people. I want to repeat this. These were chartered accountants, qualified auditors, top auditing institutions. So it's not a bank that was in the wilderness, it was in the proper hands of people who had a reason to be trusted to can take care of them.
Thank you. Honorable Tobias.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Minister, you don't have to worry. Next week on the 7th, we'll be discussing VBS report, so we'll have ample time to have our views here about what needs to happen. Because we'll have the report by Advocate Motau tabled in the committee. And we need to say upfront as the African National Congress that the Twin Peaks model of regulating the financial sector has been the most effective model which has looked at the interest of depositors, especially your ordinary depositors and retail depositors. But the question is, Honorable Deputy Minister, is that can you please tell the House what is National Treasury doing to ensure effective implementation of the legislative framework that this House has passed to ensure that such problems does not take place in the systemic financial institutions? I thank you.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I think I share your acknowledgement of the importance of the Twin Peaks. Those institutions are established by law on their own to do that supervision and regulation. All what we do, we interact with them on a regular basis and do the necessary work with regard to check whether they are doing that or not. That work is going to continue ongoing. So in as far as that, I think we commit to that. On an ongoing basis, we will be able to give report necessary to Parliament to check what are we doing with regard to that. As far as we're concerned to this point, we agree with you, they have done wonderful work. And as Treasury, we have our role to oversight and at all material times to check if the objectives of the acts this parliament has passed are actually followed as established. Thanks.
Honourable members, we now move to question 144, asked by Honourable Sheikh Imam to the Minister of Communications. Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The question relates to access to the parliamentary channel on the SABC. The response is that the channel is now freely available on the digital terrestrial TV. Those of us who are having the HD televisions can now immediately access the parliamentary channel. As we speak now, people of Machabeng are watching this parliamentary channel on the SABC platform on free-to-air. Thank you.
Honourable Sheikh.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you for that, Minister. And I'm glad to note that the poorest of the poor will benefit from this. Minister, given the fact that in these rural areas, this is where you find high unemployment or the poorest of the poor living, will you consider, in light of the fact that you're making this channel more accessible to them, would you consider some kind of incentive or reduced TV license rate, because most of these people in these particular areas cannot afford it?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Already, those who are indigent and are dependent on social grants are expected to contribute at least 75 rands per annum as part of their license fees. Those of us who are not indigent, we are expected to be paying 285 per annum. Thank you very much.
Honourable Meshwe. ACDP. Hey, the Honourable Meshwe is not here.
Those that already have digital TV can watch it. Doesn't answer the previous person's question, because the majority of people with analog TVs haven't transferred to digital TV, so it's going to be years away. Also on the issue of the licenses, one of the previous ministers and Shladi Motsoeneng made an agreement between themselves that those who qualified for DSTV was part of Shladi Motsoeneng's plan to drive subscribers to the platform, which profited MultiChoice very much. You know, it was a marketing drive to get people onto the subscription platform. What plans are you have in place, Minister, to ensure that DSTV financially compensates the fiscus for the market value of this channel over the years, and to use those funds to give impetus to the failed digital broadcasting migration policy?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. Firstly, when the whole issue around digital migration was mooted in South Africa, the estimate was that we have almost 5 million South Africans that would have to be assisted. As we speak now, the number is below 4 million of those that have to be assisted, because it is not everybody. Those that stand to be assisted by government are those that are indigent and are in the database of SASSA. Secondly, it is not only those who then have to have a digital television. With the installation of your set-top box and the connection with Centec, already the ones that I'm referring to have access to the parliamentary channel. And therefore, what is of importance is that this parliamentary channel is now taken off the pay TV onto the free-to-air, and the intention there is to ensure that South Africans have access to the proceedings of this parliament, recovering the money that has never been part of that. The issue of the licenses have got nothing to do with digital migration. What we are working with the SABC on are two things. We need to find a better way of collecting license fees. Secondly, we need to partner with the various stakeholders that are part of the Digital Migration Advisory Council, so as to ensure that just as people are able now to pay for their pay TV every month without fail, SABC must also find a better way, because the costs are high to collect, just a mere 75 rands, and hence the losses that they are incurring. And this is but one of the interventions that they are putting together. Thank you.
Honorable Ndlozi.
Yeah, the question of free-to-air, Honorable Minister, the reality is that, okay, let me put the question this way. How much is MultiChoice getting for broadcasting Parliament on its platform? Is it MultiChoice that benefits, or is it the SABC or Parliament that benefits? How much money is being made by people watching it on that platform? Because that platform is not free to air, it's people paying.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. The costs were too high on the side of the SABC. It was the SABC that was incurring these costs, and these costs had escalated precisely because of the inability of the SABC to pay MultiChoice. So it has actually accumulated over time, and with the current negotiations that are taking place on all the debts that the SABC is working on, they are now trying to find out exactly how much they have spent because of the bad agreement that was signed before. And that is exactly the problem, because there was no stipulated amount, and the costs were more on the side of the SABC in carrying them.
Honorable Kalako.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, let me first commend you for speedily looking into this issue. I remember in the committee, in your first meetings, this is the issue we raised. But is it possible that, Minister, you'll sit down with your executive and the board to quickly make sure that this issue between the SABC and MultiChoice is addressed?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, and thanks for the question. This is a relationship that is part of those that are now under review, precisely because of the bad contracts that had been entered into between SABC and the various service providers. It's the same also with the contracts with SAFA, contracts with PSL, and one of the things that we are now looking at is for the SABC to sell its own content rather than it relying on MultiChoice as a channel. MultiChoice will have to pay for the content that SABC is producing on its own, as compared to what has been the arrangement previously, which has been detrimental to the financial viability of the SABC. Thank you.
Honorable members, we move to question 186, asked by Honorable Matala to the Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. Honorable Minister.
Thanks, Deputy Chair. The question deals with food insecurity, as well as the exposure of our people to food insecurity. As a department, we have been engaging in different forms to assist our communities to ensure that access to food is addressed. And this presents two challenges. One challenge is the ability to buy food if you cannot produce it. The second one is to be assisted to produce it in your own garden. And a number of programs have been developed, including the recognition of the World Food Day, on which the whole world look at the plight of those who goes to bed without food. And South Africa is one of the countries in which the number of people who goes to bed without food is still high. Although some improvements have been made, there's still a challenge. This year we have chosen an area called Brandwacht in the Western Cape, so that we can have this day on the 24th of this month. We did not only look at how people should be given food by donation by companies, but started a campaign using our young, efficient extension officers to promote harvesting of grey water into tanks, which is used for drip system to irrigate their own plants, planting of fruit trees. And that is successful because already when we were there, we could see that people were enthusiastically working in their own gardens. And the aim is to create a system by which sustainable people can be able to produce their own food. Because access to food remains a challenge because during times of drought, the access to food, even if you have money, becomes more expensive. And as well, we also came up with a program to deal with communities along the coastal areas in trying to find a way they can also be benefiting from the programs that the department has come up with.
Honorable Matala.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'm taking the question, follow-up question on behalf of Honorable Matlala. Honorable Minister, we have just explained these initiatives, but now what mechanisms are in place or will be in place to ensure that initiatives we are talking about will be implemented effectively, as well as monitoring the progress made in this comprehensive food security program? Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Kapa. As a means to try to ensure that there is sustainability in the program, we have come up with a program to employ over 1,000 agri-students who are currently unemployed. And the aim is to increase the number of extension officers, as we believe that only through such trained and efficient officers can we be able to do monitoring and evaluation, to make follow-up, and build the capacity of our provinces. That's why we have deployed the services of ARC and NAMAC to make sure that where those services were procured from private institutions, they are done internally. And we believe that through those programs, then, communities will begin to be able to harvest water. As I spoke about Brandwacht, for instance, in every household, we have installed a 2,500 liters of water tank. We have installed a 200 water tank to ensure that all used water for washing is harvested, so that even in times of drought, we're able to be proud of the fact that that water is reused for irrigation. As I spoke about the fact that we are now busy giving out fisheries, fish species to our coastal areas. The aim is to make sure that they are trained thoroughly in terms of running cooperatives. They are trained thoroughly in management. It will be through those programs I think we'll be able then, assisting our provinces, we can account for every cent we deploy. Also, the availability of the seed-resistant cultivar of maize to all our provinces, so that even in drought conditions, production of food will not be compromised. It is participating with people. It is inviting the business communities, working with us to ensure that our people are well trained. Everybody can produce food, provided such means are offered.
Honorable Kabekulu, before the Honorable Kabekulu, Honorable Kapa and Honorable Matlala, both of you are in the House. Honorable Matlala, I'm talking to you and Honorable Kapa. You are both in the House and it shouldn't have happened here. Don't do that next time. Honorable Kabekulu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Point of order. Deputy Speaker, point of order.
Yes, yes, Honorable Ndlozi.
No, we like reprimand, but because you are saying it open here, you must tell us what they did. Otherwise, it's like we're agreeing to a reprimand we don't know. That might be illegal. What did these two honorable members do that you are reprimanding for? So we can agree and associate with the reprimand.
I'm impressed.
I agree you are not alone here.
I'm impressed that you accept reprimands, including those that might come your way. No, usually the rules don't allow that a member represents one who is in the House, which is what happened here. They did not choose the decisions here. You often do that frequently in the House. The rules, we're reminding you, do not allow it. So the member could have asked the question himself here. Honorable Kabekulu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, why is it that this government is so intent on the use of GMO maize, which is used by 80% of our people as a staple food, as one of its strategies for food security, when the GMO foods and the pesticides and herbicides that are used in conjunction with them have, in some instances, been classed by the World Health Organization, quote unquote, as possible carcinogenic to humans? When is this government going to adopt the precautionary approach and conduct its own long-term studies into use of GMO staples, herbicides and pesticides, which not only possibly cause serious harm to human health, but also irreparable harm in the environment? I thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thanks, Bayete, Honourable Wekulu. Let me explain this by saying that it is not all cultivars that are used in maize production are GMOs. Let me explain that only 54% of what we produce as yellow maize is GMO. And it is used particularly for animal feed. The only commodity that is produced 100% GMO is cotton, which is used for textiles, as well as soya beans, which are used in terms of the soya cake in the manufacture of livestock feed. As I said earlier, that we have, as a department through ARC, came up with a 20% drought-resistant seed. It is not a GMO maize. So we promote that for communities and for maize for human consumption. We use such. But there's a debate scientifically as to what methods should we use in mitigating climate change and massify food production, especially for animal feed. I take the point about the concerns about GMOs and what they can cause to the health of individuals. But since we don't use the maize that is genetically motivated, for genetically organisms, we don't use that maize. We use it only for animal feed. Therefore, as a result, that question does not arise. But I'll be willing to engage further with you. But I'm sure, Bayete, uyilibele into yobana besipha KZN siyonikeza umhlaba abakwamkhwanazi. Ngokuqhwaba izandla ukuthi lo rhulumente kakhongolose uyasebenza. Unika abantu impucuko, unika abantu into ezinhle, utshintsha isizwe, ubanika inkululeko enkosi.
The next follow-up question is the Honourable Kubisa.
Sorry, House Chair. Just one thing to correct from the Minister. Ngiyacela kwaZulu ubayethe ngonyama kuphela amakhosi nje. Please singayisebenzisi ukuthi bayethe mamte inkosi ikhuluma ngoba ngahle ngigwetshwe kwaZulu ngahle ngihenga.
Honourable Kubisa.
Angithokoze Sihlalo. Mhlonishwa ngqongqoshe. Esikhathini esiphambilini bekuyinto ejwayelekile ukuba ubone laba abethu abafundile okuthiwa babebizwa ngabalimisi. Kukhona futhi nabenza ucwaningo abaqeqeshiwe emakolleji ezolimo. Bebeza kubantu emakhaya. Laba abantu bekhona bezoluleka ngokwezomoba izinto ezithinta imfuyo nokunye nokulima nani. Kodwa kuhamba bancipha bangabe besabonakala phakathi kwabantu. Okudale ukuthi uma isimo sezulu siguquka nendlela abantu abalima ngayo, well bakhona bebe sebuyekile ukulima. Kodwa kudale inkinga enkulu lokho. Yini mhlambe ebanga ukuthi kwehle isibalo sabantu abangabalimisi? Ngoba namakolishe ezolimo buwazi ukuthi bazoqhamuka kubona abanye basafunda bengena phakathi kwabantu bezobalekelela. Mhlawumbe ingaxazululwa kanjani le nkinga ukuthi abantu bengabe besabathola laba bantu abangabalimisi abaqeqeshiwe emakolishi
Honourable Member, your
ezolimo.
time has expired. The Honourable Minister.
Xolisa mhlakaza nginazo inkomo zoba uyokhokha kumkani. To answer the question referred to me by Honorable Khubisa, it is true, I have said earlier that we have decided to employ 1,000 unemployed graduates. The aim thereof is to train them as extension officers who can be able to do research. I agree with you with the current challenges of climate change. We need a new attitude. We need to understand what cultivars can be used under what conditions. We used to promote also the usage of organic methods. As I was said, maybe one day we may just visit the area I have referred to, where we train people to have their own organic fertilizer developed by their own decomposable food they use. It is one area I think we need to focus. It is one thing, and I agree with you, such should be residing within communities, such that they can be of assistance, so that they can be able to assist communities and train them. And we are doing just that. We are planning, by the way, even to improve the capacity to make sure that there's project management, so that provinces on their own can have the requisite skills technically to run those programs. And I agree with you, we have to do that, and we're doing it already.
The last follow-up on this question, I see the Honourable Dlamini from the EFF has indicated. Are you now the Honourable Dlamini, Honourable Paulson?
Sorry, but his button was closer.
You must play with your own button. But you may continue.
Like Minister Gigaba.
No, you play with your button.
I have it on good authority, Minister Gigaba's feeling.
No, I want the question, Honourable Member.
Minister, the Fetsatlala program is 5 years old, and only now you have set a target to have a very mediocre target of 450 black commercial farmers. And I think that's where one of the problems are, is that this department sets itself very mediocre targets, which it doesn't achieve in any case. So what assurance does this Parliament have that this won't be one of those many good initiatives of the ANC which will fall along the wayside and will fail despite it being a very mediocre target? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
The Honourable Minister.
Thanks, Chairperson. Honourable Paulson, let me correct you first. Fetsatala does not deal with the development of commercial farmers. It deals with food insecurity. Feta means finish hunger. It's a different program. The one you are referring to of the 450 commercial farmers. To develop commercial farmers, you need access to markets. It won't assist you to produce more commodities, no matter how of quality they may be, without access to markets. That's why we have got all our attachers globally to make sure that markets are opened. Hence, as we debate, there will be now, for the first time, an export by our own farmers of lucerne hay to China. Is one form then you can be able, in assisting them through CASP, you can be able to link them to such program. We have got access to maize or maize products. I was in the USA last week to argue for our citrus fruits to be exported to the United States of America. Those are forms that we are engaging in. About the issue you are raising about fail and all that, I cannot comment on that because where I stand, and I invite you to travel with me to Brandwacht, and there you will see what we have done in changing poverty to a vibrant food security initiative. And because you are also in the Western Cape, maybe you will be able to accompany me to leave, and please leave your overall. They can mistake you for something else. Go with me in a green overall. Thank you very much.
A point of order, House Chair.
Yes, Honourable Member.
House Chair, for the second time this afternoon, DA members have been within the first 4 on the list and they have not been called on. Now, we realise this happens occasionally, but it's already happened twice and we're not even halfway through this afternoon's questions. I'd request that you not allow it to happen again.
No, Honourable Member, I don't know what informed you, but we follow the screen here in front of us. And now I'm replying to you, and when I took over from the Deputy Speaker, he indicated to me which are the ones. I even checked with the table staff here in front of me where we are. So we took it in that sequence.
House Chair, that's not our information at all. We've checked, as I say, for the second time now. We have been within the first.
Then you
4,
are
but we've not been called
misinformed.
on.
You are misinformed, Honourable Member. Question number 187 has been asked by the Honourable Malloy to the Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. The Honourable Minister.
Thanks, House Chair. On the matter of small-scale fisheries program, I'm proud to report that we have just allocated fishing rights to communities in Northern Cape for 15 years. And those communities are very proud because now they can go and fish without looking behind their backs. They can be able to compete with a variety of species. As we believe that when communities begin to participate in the fishing industry, we will in one way or another be dealing with the scourge of poaching, because communities will be part of the process and begin to know that they can fish, not only fish, but they're able to process the fish they catch and be able to access markets. Access to protein-rich seafood is very important for our own people. For many years, we have turned our people into different formations, like forcing them to do things that are wrong, because we have denied them the right to access those fish species. In the Eastern Cape, we have got 37 co-ops already approved. We will be allocating in November in the Eastern Cape. In the KZN, we have got 72 communities who have been approved. In the Western Cape, I'm sure that by April next year, we will be doing the same. Access to fishing rights is the right of all those who reside along the coastal areas. If they are deprived of the right to go and fish, they are made, therefore, not to participate in the economy of our country. I'm proud of this question was raised, as we believe that it is one means we can be able to dent unemployment and give those people dignity of being fishermen and fisher people, so that they can all go and fish. It is how they are called. They are called fishermen. It's not my own creation. I'm trying to say they are fisher folk so that everybody feels comfortable. The right to fish is not only enough. It is the right to process your fish, the right to market it, so that you can realize, even in the dams of Kofimvaba, we will be putting fish so that those along those areas, because there is fish that can be also be fished in fresh water, so that people can eat fish and enjoy it. They can sell it. They can make a livelihood out of it. And I know Mr. Paulse is very fond of fishing. And I believe tomorrow, and my view is, if we can give people the right to fish, we will be dealing with poaching. Because those people who are staying along the coastal areas understand who's doing this illegal practice. Thank you very much.
The first supplementary question is to be asked by the Honourable Malloy.
No, thank you very much, Minister. What are the implications of suspending the training of the cooperatives in the Western Cape? And related to that, it's you know, the right allocation process in KwaZulu-Natal. You are saying it will only be done subject to the bylaws being adopted. What does this mean? Does this mean if the bylaws are not adopted, we will not proceed with this important process? You know, you are making a statement, Minister, and I want you to confirm whether I have heard you correctly or not, that the department is not aware of any dispute raised by small-scale fishing sector regarding the fishing quotas. Is that what you are saying?
The Honourable Minister.
Thanks, House Chair. The point I'm driving is to say that in the KZN, already we have identified and recognized 45 small-scale fisheries. We're in the process of training them. And because the processes take time sometimes, the issue that is referred to in terms of people who are informing, let's say one says in my community, there's a person who has been given a fishing right at small scale, but he is a teacher or a policeman. We have to look at that so that nobody can believe that he has been denied and somebody has been allocated wrongly. In the case, I can assure you that by November, we will have allocated the 45 cooperatives with fishing rights. We're busy training them. The process also of approving these co-ops is with the Department of DTI. We're working very well with them to ensure that our people are not only given rights, but they are trained to manage their finances, to have access to small boats, to improve the methods they use in the fishing process, and ensure that they can use all fish at their disposal for different purposes. So I'm saying, therefore, in my answer, we are aware of the fact that there have been only in the Western Cape where there have been objections in the allocation of this or qualification of some on the basis that they may be employed somewhere else. But it is not a national phenomenon. Hence, I believe that we'll be able, by April next year, to have gone through this process of allocation of small-scale fisheries. As I believe it is very important for our people to be proud of being residing close to the ocean and be able to participate in the harvesting of the marine living resources.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Kebekulu.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Mhlonishwa, oqala umuntu akakuthokozele ukuzwa ukuthi umnyango uphophela kangakanani ukuthi ulekela abantu bakithi uze bebe nethuba nabo kwezokudoba. Kodwa ke ngifuna ukukubuza mhlonishwa ukuthi njengalokhu kunale nselelo obukhuluma ngayo manje yokudoba ngokungemthetho okuyi-poaching. Kunenselelo enkulu eSouth Africa yokuthi kudotshwa ama-Abalones ngokungemthetho. Nxa ngabe sebebanjiwe abebedoba ngokungemthetho yathathwa leyo mhlomulo. Kwenzakalani kuyona uma ngabe umnyango uyigcinile uyayidayisa imali yakhona isebenza ekwenzenini emva kuba sebephuciwe bona? Ngiyathokoza.
The Honourable Minister.
Dibonge Bayet. Hayi man, not Bayet again. Dibonge mhlonishwa, dibonge ndabezitha. Dibonge unicela uxolo kuBayet. Mangisho ngithi kunyani ukuthi poaching is happening. But it is not true that only our people are involved in poaching. Only this year, a settlement was made in the New Jersey court where a commercial company was found to have been fishing here in Hot Bay illegally. And they are found guilty and will be able to get some money from those proceeds, around R1 million. How will we use that money? That money will be utilized only to assist communities around which poaching takes place, as well as to train and empower those who have to make sure that no poaching takes place. And I repeat, poaching sizayinqoba siyohlule xa sisebenza nabahlali bakuthi abakweza ndawo. Sibanika amalungelo ubuza umbuzo omhle ukuthi what happens to the funds that are generated? One, we have changed the store that used to keep dry abalone. It is now kept somewhere else where nobody can easily go and retake it from those who guard it. And we want to make sure that we must make sure that no fish or abalone is illegally poached, even before it is taken to our store. And we can do that through partnership by engaging other state departments who must work with us to ensure that nobody is allowed. But once we give people the right to fish, I believe they will be encouraged also to play a role to make sure that no poaching takes place. But further, we would like to launch a campaign of awareness against poaching.
Honourable Minister, your time is now expired. The next follow-up question will be asked by the Honourable Van Dalen.
Yes, thank you, Minister, for giving our fisher community, a small-scale fisher, some attention at last. And I would just like to ask, in light of the WWF court case, and you know, you talk about poaching, but it's rising, and nothing seems to be done to clamp down on it. You know, will the Minister consider ring-fencing the proceeds that the department now makes out of selling the confiscated abalone, and then to hand it to or to pay the small-scale fishers or the smaller quota holders to stay out of the water, so that it gives our fish stocks time to replenish and rejuvenate, maybe for 2 or 3 years, so that they can have longer-lasting fish stocks in the sea that would be better to allocate to our communities. Thank you, Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
Thanks, House Chair. On the first question, I may not comment, as the case is ongoing between WWF and the department. But on the second issue you are making, I agree with you. I have said the funds that has been accumulated from the case of the late Mr. Arnold Benjes will be utilized purely to ensure that it assists communities in projects, as well as to enhance the program to fight poaching. And the same, of course, will happen with the proceeds from stolen abalone. I don't think we need to be proud of making money from a stolen abalone. We should use it to ensure that we protect, we prevent, and we make sure that our people are made proud of being residents along the coastal areas. It is one area I think me and you, in any other in the House, should work together on, as we believe that the police may do their work, but we need also to approach the countries who receive these stolen goods, so that we can, and we need to improve also the hatchery of abalone, so that we can be having to produce more abalone. But it must be a hatchery owned by our black people, because the issue of color plays a role. As we speak, the main beneficiaries of our fishing industry are the old commercial companies. As we're taking this case, we're believing that its aim is to reduce the TAC. While to reduce the TAC, you are forcing our people to go and poach, as they cannot sit unemployed. We can win this battle to save our marine resources by working together. And I agree with you, every cent that will be made will not be used for administrative purposes. It will be used to ensure that our people in those areas respect. They can only do that if they believe that they benefit from this fish species that is sought after, because it is linked also to elements of drug trafficking.
Thank you. The next follow-up question is to be asked by the EFF, the Honourable Paulson.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. There's never been a time when fishing quota allocations were favourable towards the communities in the Western Cape, our traditional black, and African and coloured communities. What alternatives has the department for those fishing communities who has been denied a livelihood, especially those in the Western Cape and KZN, Eastern Cape? Thank you very much.
Honourable Minister.
Thanks, House Chair. Honourable Pauls, one of the measures we have taken to address that, and not limited to small scale, because you can't be small forever, but it is a beginning. The second one, we have been to courts on many occasions, fighting cases where companies have been trying to limit the scope to which we can do transformation. We're engaging companies to say to them, forfeit some of the rights of fishing quotas and give to small-scale fisheries. But the handicap is not that people don't have rights. It is access to vessels. Most of our people are now paper quotas. They get fish and give that fish to other companies. And companies refuse to allow them to go and fish because they want to hide the quantum they make from bycatches. King clip and monkfish, we need to declare those as fisheries and target black people as the recipients thereof. It is something we're fighting to be doing. I hope with your support, we'll be able to achieve that. We can transform this industry quicker than yesterday, provided we work together so that black people are proud of being in this business.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Members, question number 168 has been asked by the Honourable Mazzoni to the Minister of Public Enterprises. I've been informed that the Minister of Public Enterprises has requested that all questions addressed to him should stand over in terms of Rule 144, Sub-Rule 1. We now move to question number 188, which has been asked by the Honourable Kwabaza to the Minister of Energy. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair and honourable members. The answer to the question is that the Department of Energy is in the initial stages of determining the suitability of publishing a maximum price for one of the grades of petrol instead of publishing a fixed one. A market sounding exercise was undertaken, and the responses from key stakeholders indicate that the further consultation is still required. A socio-economic impact assessment of such a change in regulatory methodology will also need to be undertaken to identify, especially to mitigate against any unintended consequences. Thank you.
The Honourable Kwabaza.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Sibonga Ngqongqoshe. Wenze kahle Bhungane. Uthi mawuzwa abantu bakithi bekhala ngale ngcindezi edalwa ukwenyuka kwenani kapetrol bese usungula uphenyo oluzoveza amaqhinga okusombulula le ngcindezi nokuthi upetrol ungakhuphuki ngendlela engalawuleki. Kodwa kukhona amaqembu engqongqoshe ezepolitiki asekhethe ukusebenzisa lolu daba ngendlela engenalo iqiniso ngoba efuna amavoti ngokhetho lonyaka ozayo. Could the Honourable Minister explain to the public the external and domestic factors which have given rise to the increases in the price of petrol? Nokuthi imphumela ke ngqongqoshe yalolu phenyo ingase iphume nini? Angibonge.
The Honourable Minister.
Thanks for that follow-up question. I can indicate briefly that there are two major factors that impact on the high prices of fuel in our country. Firstly, we do not have a possession of oil in South Africa. We depend on imports from major oil-producing countries, and the price of crude oil is dependent on that level, especially from OPEC members, so it is beyond our control. And secondly, the dollar exchange rate also plays a very critical role in the determination of prices. That is why, as an ANC government, we are concerned about this. That's why this proposal will go a long way in alleviating this issue in South Africa. We are consulting with major stakeholders in our country, and we believe before the end of January 2019, there will be a proposal on the table. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Lorimer.
Thanks, House Chair. Minister, following your research into the restructuring of the fuel price, did you come to the conclusion that increases in the Road Accident Fund levy can be avoided in future?
The Honourable Minister.
That issue of the Road Accident Fund is not right now part of this study because it has a very critical impact on the fiscus. So those discussions will be parallel to this process because we do not want to impact on the issue of the fiscal consolidation, as emphasized also by our Minister of Finance during his medium-term budget policy statement. So that issue of the fuel price, together with the Road Accident Fund, will be dealt with separately.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Meshu. I don't see the Honourable Meshu in the House. So let's move on to the Honourable Nhlangwini, EFF.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, meeste van onze swart mense en kleerlings hang af van petrol om by die werk uit te kom en spandeer meer as helfte van hulle salarisse op petrol. Ons het na jou kantoor toe geskryf, minister, om antwoorde te kry oor die hoë petrol inkomste. Kan u asseblief vir ons sê, minister, hoekom het jou kan u asseblief vir ons sê aan u antwoord, hoekom was die antwoord baie meer gewikkel en gewaffel en nie eintlik vir ons 'n antwoord gegee nie, minister? And why have government not taken a political decision on the petrol prices instead of leaving the market to free rein and exploit our black workers that use this that use half of their salaries to go on petrol to go to work?
Honourable Minister, did you get the question?
Angitholile ekugcineni ukuthi uthini uzakho. Njengoba kade ngichaza ke ukuthi suhulumeni ka-ANC sifuna ukuthi siluxazulule lolu daba ukuthi siphenye ukuze isixazulule kube yisona ezosiza abantu akithi kakhulukazi labo abasebenzayo nalabo abahluphekayo. So ngithi ke kuza kwethu akalinde uJanuary 2019 lolu hlelo soba nalo nawe futhi neqembu lakho lombangazwe uma kukhona izinto ufuna ukuyiphosa elana iza nombono wakho sowuthatha subeke kahle. Ngiyabonga.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Estreisen.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable Minister, as noble as good as it might be for government to consider to set a price ceiling on unleaded fuel, has the department investigated what legal steps would be necessary to make this possible? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
The legal step will be determined by the proposal that will come on. That is why we're consulting especially with the industry players, in particular SAPIA, who have given us preliminary proposal, but they want to consider the matter very comprehensively by giving us written comments before the end of January 2019. So I also want to extend an invitation to yourselves as well to provide us with your suggestion, because we're very serious about changing and putting a cap, especially on 93 unleaded petrol.
Honourable members, we now go to question 162 that has been asked by the Honourable Van Dijk to the Minister of Mineral Resources. The Honourable Minister.
Glacier is an old diamond mine in the Northern Cape in Namaqualand. It is a mine belonging to De Beers Diamond. Now, what we are actually advising De Beers to do, and we're going to monitor that it is done, is that if you mine and that mine is no longer operational, it is important to close that mine and actually fences off so that there's no easy access to the mined out area. That is what is important in terms of that one. We're also holding regular meetings with local police to ensure that law enforcement is also done effectively. And the department has also engaged the owner of the property, De Beers, in this case, to ensure that they properly monitor potential areas of access to the worked out area. And when claims here is totally mined out, the actual solution is actually rehabilitation of that mined up mine called claims here in Namaqualand.
The follow-up question will be taken by the Honourable Schmidt on behalf of the Honourable Van Dijk. Honourable Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honourable Minister, this is not the first time that blatant illegal mining is taking place in plain sight. The same happened with illegal chrome mining near Burgers Fort. Yet again, we have months of law breaking with no response from the DMR. By when will you have illegal mining such as this at Kleinseer regulated?
The Honourable Minister.
The reason that we are engaging the Minister of Police to have a unit in the police service that deals with illegal mining is because law enforcement is the responsibility of that department. The DMR will not have a capacity to enforce anything against illegal mining because that is theft, a criminal activity. Illegal mining is a criminal activity and therefore it must be treated as crime. But to try to address the question of illegal mining, we've also considered that we regularize illegal mining into small cooperatives. We have 2 experiments, one in Kimberley and one in the Tubatsi Valley. Want to see how those works. If it works well, we'll actually roll it out to all the other areas. But the solution is small-scale mining must be supported, must be licensed, and actually produce, and their product must go to the formal market of that particular mineral. That is what we see. But illegal mining must not be given any other complexion. It is a criminal activity and it must be treated as such.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Matiase.
House Chair. Look, Mr. Minister, people are working and they are working the mines. And as they work the mine to provide for themselves and for their families. The Freedom Charter says the wealth beneath the soil belongs to the people. Why do you criminalize them? Why don't you create an enabling environment for these people to work and work within the framework which is conducive than to follow the neoliberal definition of the DA, which demands on you to declare these people as criminal and engage in criminal activities? Do you have a plan in place to create that an enabling environment? And how soon can the industry of the so-called illegal miners be regulated? And we want concrete answers and concrete action.
The Honourable Minister.
The problem, when you prepare a question from home, you don't listen even when an answer is given. Now, because you brought your question from home, I'm saying we have started regularizing illegal mining into giving them a license to produce. We have an experiment in in Kimberley. We have another experiment in the Tubatsi Valley. If it works properly, we'll roll it out. That's what we're saying. But just grabbing minerals is a criminal activity. Because if we do that, we can as well open up everything. But we're regularizing them. That is the answer. I'm repeating it.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Esther Eisen.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, apart from the impact on infrastructure of this...
Order, Honourable members. Will you repeat? You can start again, Honourable Member.
Minister, apart from the impact on the infrastructure on this small community and the danger to the miners themselves, Honourable Minister, do you realise it's costing the country more than 5 billion per year in loss of revenue on diamonds? Also, Minister, you said it's a criminal activity. Why is it mostly foreigners that are involved in illegal mining in South Africa? How can we continue to allow people to enter this country illegally, contravene the laws of this country and engage in such activities? How can you not stop this through your laws? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
It's I'm a mine worker by background. Everywhere I worked, I had fellow workers from Lesotho, I had fellow workers from Mozambique, I had fellow workers from Botswana. So when a mine is closed and people go and do illegal mining in those mines, many of them is because they have been in those mines. And all we are saying is that we should regularize them into proper miners who produce formally and channels the produce to the economic space so that they contribute to the economic activity of the country. If they don't do that, and they want to steal that money, grab it, and go away quietly with it, that is a criminal activity. That's what they should be treated as such, whether they are foreign or domestic.
The last follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Matlala.
Yes, thank you, Honourable Chair and the Honourable Minister. I'm happy that you have answered these questions that I was supposed to ask you. It shows that you and your department, you are hands-on in dealing with the problem, challenges that is facing the mining sector in the country. Yes, because you said to us today that you have a long plan in dealing with the challenges of illegal mining in the country. I'm very happy that you answered this question correctly, so thank you very much.
So you don't have a question, Honourable Member? No question?
Point of order.
Yes, Honourable Member.
This is a question and answer session. Question, answer. You rise, you ask a question. You'll compliment each other
Member,
in ANC offices,
take your
not
seat
here.
now.
Here we ask questions.
Honourable Member, take your seat now. Members are allowed to make comments. However, it's preferable for questions to be answered. Honourable Members, we now go to the following question. On that one is question 190, asked by the Honourable Luzipo to the Minister of Mineral Resources.
Sorry, House Chair.
Honourable
sorry.
Minister, let me just take this point. Why are you rising, Honourable Member?
No, sorry, House Chair, with the greatest respect. That was not a question. Can we get a question? Why here? This is an opportunity for members of Parliament to ask questions. An honourable member stands, doesn't ask the question. We forfeit the opportunity to engage cabinet ministers.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Can we get an opportunity to ask a question in place of a non-question?
Honourable Member.
Please, House Chair.
Thank you. Take your seat now. Honourable Members, it's quite normal that if a member has indicated that he or she wants to take a follow-up question and it appears here, and subsequently the question is answered, that members make a comment. And that is what the member did. There was no question. And that's why we're moving to the next question. Honourable Minister.
The question by Honourable Luzipo regarding the oil and gas industry. The delay in the processing of the MPRDA amendment bill, which has been in Parliament since 2013, actually has equally delayed the establishment and development of the oil and gas into a fully fledged sector. The department is busy developing oil and gas bill to regulate the sector and will ensure, among other things, that it provides for equitable access to these resources. Petroleum and gas can only pay a huge price if it continues to be an appendage to mining. That's why we think that when we separate legislative framework for them and establish them into a fully fledged sector, we are standing to benefit as a country. And we can deal with the issue that was raised in terms of prices of petrol and all those things when we begin to produce our own.
The Honourable Luzipo.
Thank you, House Chair. And thanks to the Minister with the answer. Unfortunately, there's something called political acuteness. It sometimes retards people ideologically when they can't rise to the occasion. The issue, therefore, Minister, is that you, in your answer that you have given, and in relation to the withdrawal of the MPRD amendment bill, with the intention of introducing regulations for oil and gas, how will those regulations deepen the agenda for transformation and equitable access? Thank you very much.
The Honourable Minister.
The provisions of the MPRDA, which will be migrated to the new legislative framework, are actually explicit in terms of transformation and participation of black South Africans in that sector. It's quite an important sector, And it is important for all of us to develop it so that our people benefit from it and they participate actively in the economy of the country through that sector. It's quite an important sector.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honourable Minister, the oil and gas industry is urgently awaiting the promulgation of the intended legislation on oil and gas, in particular for the much-needed investment, as you've pronounced yourself upon. By when, and the question is by when, is the new legislation to be tabled in Parliament? That's the most important issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
We are going to be ready with the draft in 3 weeks' time. But whether it will go through Parliament is a different matter. I am not running the Parliament. But we'll draft it, we're discussing with the sector. In 3 weeks' time, we will have the framework and the first draft tabled for discussion. A decision to whether bring it to the current sitting of Parliament for it to prescribe is a different matter.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Matiase.
I'm taking it, Deputy Speaker. Chairperson, sorry. Section 79 of the Constitution says that only the President can refuse to withdraw a constitutional bill. What was the basis of withdrawing the amendment bill?
The Honourable Minister.
The intention is pronounced by the Minister, but the process is not run by the Minister, because that bill is before Parliament and parliamentary processes exercise that decision. So it is not the Minister who withdraws the bill, it is the NCOP that sends it back to the National Assembly, and it's the National Assembly that can withdraw the bill. That's it.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Esther Reason.
So, that goes.
Honourable Esther Reason.
Honourable Minister, although gas is included in the new integrated resource plan, in this new IRP, there is no clear policy or legislature, and there is legislative uncertainty about gas in this country. When will this be rectified? Thank you.
IRP falls under the jurisdiction of the Minister of Energy. I would imagine when you ask questions to the Minister of Energy, he will be in a position to answer that question.
Thank you. We now move on to question number 191, as asked by Honourable Van Schalkwyk to the Minister of Labour. I'm not sure.
I'll take the question, Chairperson. During the past year, Public Employment Services registered more than 667,000 work seekers, more than 197,000 of whom were provided with employment counseling and advice. During 2016, services were also taken closer to the people through the launch of the self-help service station or kiosks in more than 22 labor centers, and a further 40 labor centers were equipped with the kiosks during 2017. The Turnaround Solutions program of Productivity SA has saved over 145,000 jobs and created more than 600 new job opportunities since it was incepted. The UIF also funds the training layoff scheme, a scheme that is designed to prevent job losses in companies in distress. Productivity SA has, through the Turnaround Solutions program, provided support to 71 companies facing economic distress by restructuring and improving their productivity and operational efficiency, thereby minimizing the retrenchments of workers. In the process, 8,515 jobs were saved. Productivity SA also offers the Workplace Challenge program, which is an enterprise support program with a focus on achieving productive high-income economy, which is a globally competitive, targeting the productive, which is globally competitive, targeting the productive sectors of the economy, which have a potential for labor absorption. Over the past financial year, 590 companies were supported through the WPC program, and over 45,232 jobs were sustained. The training layoff scheme, in addition to other active labor market interventions, has from its inception saved 11,000 jobs. Accumulatively taking into account all the other relevant Department of Labor schemes, 19,600 jobs were saved, as I said, while 45,232 jobs were retained. Notwithstanding that the training layoff scheme was designed to respond to the 2009 global economic crisis, we have succeeded in reshaping its construct so that it also responds to threats to employment that may not be related to the global economic crisis. We have also extended the period for which the intervention can be employed from 6 months to 12 months. The scheme has also included the opportunity for workers to be trained in other skills other than those offered by their respective employers. This is to enhance the mobility of their skills and to increase the prospects of securing jobs in other industries. This new introduction also allows the workers to change their career paths. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Apology, honorable members, for not informing you that the question as to the Minister of Labour will be answered by the Deputy Minister. We now continue, and Honorable Van Schalkwyk.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you very much to the Honorable Deputy Minister for his elaborate answer, conscientizing the people of South Africa exactly how much intervention are being made and how many jobs are being saved through the specific interventions. But Honorable Deputy Minister, we've received yesterday the latest unemployment figures, and it indicated continuous increase of unemployment in South Africa. And due to this fact, there's a continuous increase of applications for training layoff schemes, which are currently standing at 21%. Are there specific sectors which you are prioritizing to benefit through this initiative, or how are you choosing the sectors that you prioritize for intervention? I thank you.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Well, I don't believe that you are prioritizing per se any specific sectors. But what I know is that every company that finds itself in distress, we entertain its application, look at the merits, and if we believe that indeed our intervention is going to result in the retention of jobs, then we accordingly give them the necessary support. Thank you.
Thank you. The next follow-up question will come from Honorable Shengwa.
Sengizotshena wena sihlalo ngiyathokoza leli thuba onginika lona adile izintaba Nkosi. I hear what you are saying, and you are speaking about interventions of the past and ideas, hopes, dreams, and aspirations that the department has. But the reality is that it has not yielded results which are favorable for the collective interests of South Africans. Unemployment went up yesterday by 0.3%, which is close to 10 million people who are unemployed. And so none of your interventions have yielded results. Isn't it time that you go back to the drawing board and devise new strategies? Because the more things change, the more they seem to stay the same. So what hope and comfort would you give South Africans that your interventions are actually working when they're not? And so isn't really time that all these things you've narrated be changed, because you've had them for the longest of time. Kodwa abantu basahlupheka, abasebenzi bangaphansi kwengcindezi engakaziboni. And
Sithokoza,
sithole
Mhlonishwa.
iy'ngwanekwane ezingabalisi
Siyathokoza
abantu phambili.
Mhlonishwa, isikhathi siphelile. Mhlonishwa Ngqongqoshe.
If saving 145,000 jobs and creating more than 600 new opportunities, new opportunities, it does not amount to having an impact, I don't know what will. Because it is everybody's responsibility. It is everybody's responsibility to ensure that as many people are employed. The main responsibility of the Department of Labor, as we should know, is to regulate the labor market in the main, to ensure that the rights of workers are not violated, that workers receive their rights as accorded to them by the Constitution and labor laws. I don't think at this stage there's a need for us to go to the drawing board. Instead, let us collect the information that we are in a position to get as parliamentarians. Share it with the public out there so that they come to the labor centers and take advantage of the benefits that are being provided. Thank you very much.
Sithokoze. Honorable Bahrain.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The training layoff scheme has been an unmitigated disaster. Only 61 companies in 10 years. The trade union movement has given little to no support to the scheme, and there's been no take-up at all. The results have been negative in the sense that mass retrenchments have followed most of these attempts. The department has spent millions on the schemes and has little to show for it. Minister, Deputy Minister, are you contemplating scrapping this altogether? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
We are not contemplating scrapping this altogether. In fact, we are not contemplating scrapping any of the programs that we have, because to the thousands of people that I have referred to who are benefiting from these schemes, this is a lot of work that the department is doing. As to the trade unions not supporting, well, I'm not aware of that, but all I know is that at NADLEC and also with the Department of Labor, we engage fruitfully with the trade unions. I don't know about your relationship, therefore, with trade unions as the DA, but in our view, we are getting all the support that we need from the trade union federations. Thank you.
Thank you. The last follow-up question will come from Honorable Khawula.
Well, Deputy Minister, in developed economies where workers own means of production and sit on boards that take key decisions, workers are able to influence the way the company treats its employees. An example of this is Germany, where the following 2008 financial crisis, instead of going straight for retrenchments, companies and workers were able to agree to more flexible working hours to avoid retrenchments, but also avoid the bankruptcy of those companies. But here, because the only power that we have is political power, the EFF will establish Job Protections Act and Jobs Protection Fund, which will make sure the employers exhaust all options before resorting to retrenchments to avoid further jobs. Will the minister support it as a progressive idea from the EFF?
Honorable Deputy Minister.
As a progressive organization ourselves, obviously we will support any idea that is going to assist us in addressing the unemployment crisis that the country is facing. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, question 165, is asked by Dr. M.J. Kado to the Minister of Economic Development. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. Honourable members, the Competition Commission has been widely praised for the quality of its work on mergers, on cartel actions, and on abuse of dominance investigations. In April this year, the Competition Commission was awarded the Global Competition Review Agency of the Year for Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. There is much that we can be proud of in the effectiveness of the Commission and its successes in dealing with cartels and mergers, as well as abuse of dominance. But even strong institutions will have challenges from time to time that they need to address. Honorable Carter wrote to me to highlight concerns that had appeared in the media, and I have engaged the Competition Commission on those issues, as well as on matters that the Auditor General highlighted in the audit report. The Commission provided me with detailed responses on a number of these issues, covering, among others, the challenges they face with physical security of staff and premises, the issues relating to a particular court judgment, and the problems of finding experienced law firms who are not conflicted. I am aware that Honorable Cardo and other honorable members had extensive engagement with the Competition Commission during the proceedings of the Portfolio Committee on the matters raised in the letter. I now wish to address where we are with our process of considering the concerns raised. During the second reading debate on the Competition Amendment Bill in this House last week, I indicated I would be establishing a set of expert panels to review various matters relating to the effectiveness and efficiency of the competition authorities and the department to ensure that the authorities are ready to implement the Competition Amendment Bill during next year, subject to the outcome of the parliamentary processes. Mr. Tebogo Malachi, a lawyer in private practice, will lead the panel to consider institutional matters affecting, among others, the Competition Commission and the Tribunal. Part of his advice will be to consider the proposed changes to the Act and its impact on the financial, human resource and systems requirements of the Commission and Tribunal and the Department. He will review, among others, the issues raised by the Auditor General and its implications for ensuring that the Commission is able to procure the appropriate legal, economic and forensic resources, given that investigation and litigation are core functions of the Commission, as well as considering the legal costs incurred by the Commission to date and policy on the use of law firms. This may include guidelines and insights flowing from litigation over the past 10 years, including on the Commission's capacity, resources and procedures. His focus will include looking at the budgetary challenges facing the Commission in light of its expanded workload and mandate, including its funding model, scope to improve efficiencies and procedures, all in order to assist with the work of the Commission. This will also look at bottlenecks in the Commission and Tribunal processes flowing from the greater caseload of the authorities in the past 5 years. There are a number of other areas, including security of persons and property, given the focus of the Commission on criminalization of cartel conduct. Mr. Malachi will also consider current governance arrangements in all the institutions and whether changes are required to strengthen. Honorable members, as we address these challenges, we need to do so in ways that constructively build the institutions, protect their independence, build on their considerable strengths, and at the same time address any gaps or weaknesses in the system.
Thank you. Honorable Kado.
Thank you, Minister. I hope you will make available to me the response given to you by the Competition Commission. But my question to you is, do you regard it as above board that Nzaba Nzaba Attorneys, a law firm whose principal partner, Anthony Nzaba Nzaba, used to be a senior employee at the Competition Commission, has received 72 million rand in payments from the Commission since January 2015, was channeled 31 out of 44 cartel cases by the Commission over a 2-year period, and was on the receiving end of 42 million rand in irregular expenditure by the Commission over the past 2 financial years? If not, what do you intend to do about it?
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Cardo had put a question to me earlier in writing dealing with this particular matter. In the course of answering that question, I provided comprehensive details made available to me by the Commission, setting out the details of this. Let me just quote one little bit of it. It says here, the majority of cartel cases handled by Nzaba attorneys have been resolved through prosecution and settlement that were confirmed by the tribunal. The law firms successfully negotiated settlements to the amount of 594 million rand. Let me repeat that. 594 million rand, and has a 100% success rate on the prosecutions at the Competition Tribunal thus far. Now, I raise that, Honorable Cardo, because one of the challenges the Commission faces is that the traditional law firms in Sandton normally act for the litigants that appear before the Commission. And the Commission, in allocating its own work, has to find law firms that are not conflicted, that don't look, as it were, from the view of the litigants, but that look at the view from the Commission. And that limits the number of law firms that the Commission believes it can have confidence would be able to pursue the cases of the Commission. In that small pool of law firms, the Commission has appointed more than one, and you correctly pointed out it has given the bulk of its work to one law firm. Part of the review we're looking at is how do we insource more capability in the Commission, bring in good technical legal expertise inside, in-house in the Commission, and also see how do we widen the pool of law firms that the Commission feels may not be conflicted in dealing with matters of the Commission. I think, though, I want to underline this issue. We have an institution that's worked well. There are some challenges here and there that we must address, but in dealing with those, we don't break down institutions in order to solve little problems that the Commission may have, or to deal with the issues that the Auditor General has raised.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next question will be asked by Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, the Competition Commission is an essential independent regulatory body which investigates abuse of dominant positions by for-profit business enterprises in order to achieve equity and efficiency in the South African economy. Whilst one of the stated purposes of the Commission is to recognize the role of the foreign competition in the Republic, it must also ensure that small and medium-sized enterprises have equitable opportunity to participate in the economy, especially from our historically disadvantaged sections of our population. For an example, Minister, how is it that the Competition Commission ensures that foreign investments or foreign owners, entities, are not in fact monopolizing certain segments of the South African retail fashion industry? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nkomo, for the question. And you correctly point out the legal mandate of the Commission. Let me give you an illustration of a recent matter that's come up before the Commission and was finalized in the tribunal. And it involves the Chevron matter, where Chevron, a US oil company, decided to sell off its share in Chevron South Africa. And the Commission, working with the Department, put forward a settlement agreement in the Competition Tribunal. And what this did was, this is now the Caltex garages. The settlement agreement reserved for South Africans the right to, if you like, own and operate the bulk of the Caltex garages. It also increased the opportunities to black South Africans and small businesses to acquire LPG gas that can be distributed. And finally, it looked at ways of enhancing small business through a fund that was created of about 200 million rand. Coming to the issue of foreign entry of retailers, clothing or fashion retailers in South Africa, that matter up to now has fallen outside the scope of the Competition Commission in law, because none of those have been through a merger. They've all been through greenfields investment, which means it doesn't come through the door of the Competition Commission. What we will be looking at are other interventions, other initiatives to talk to the big retailers, foreign-owned retailers, to ensure that there is greater sourcing of goods from South Africans. One example, a very good example of that was the Walmart transaction. Now, it's not fashion, but it is a retailer, and the Commission and Tribunal, working with the Department, eventually we had the Competition Appeal Court imposing on Walmart a 240 million rand localization fund to support small business and local entrepreneurs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next question will come from Honorable Nolichongo.
Thank you, Chair. The Commissioner and his team are investigating some of the most powerful companies who are equally the most corrupt in our country. If anything, the 2010 World Cup Stadium collusion was just the tip of the iceberg. And now they are threatening the Commissioner and his team because they are continuing with the investigation. Have you found any coordinated attempts to assassinate the characters of the Commissioner and his team? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nolichobo. One of the issues that has come out in the investigations up to now has been the extent of vested interest in the economy. And recently, over the last period, we've had a number of examples, and I highlighted these in a reply to a parliamentary question, where a deputy commissioner was held up at gunpoint and his computer and other equipment was taken, where the commission offices were burgled with the intention of stealing laptop computers, where a senior staffer of the Competition Commission, the finance officer, was held up, where the commissioner himself, his own cell phone disappeared. And these potentially point to a challenge that vested interests are obviously very concerned about the effectiveness of the competition authorities. We are currently doing a security review in the state of the competition authorities, and in the meantime, the Commission has put in place protection services for the core staff and for the premises of the Commission, so that we in fact are able to ensure some integrity and control and protection over the property, the equipment, and the persons of the Commission. And so, as the security report is completed, we will have a better insight on the potential source of this and if there's any coordinated effort to undermine the Competition Commission.
Thank you. We now move to question 180, as asked by Honorable Shibambu to the Minister of Finance. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the honorable member, ongusekela mongameli wabantu abakhomandayo. We want to say the Minister of Finance is still familiarizing himself with the National Treasury comments on the bill and will provide a detailed response once the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance has completed its process. We take a view that this bill is sponsored from within Parliament. We are looking forward to comment once the Parliament express a particular view and interact with that.
Thank you. In accordance to Rule 137.10, the question asked, Dr. Ndlozi will take charge of the question asked by Honorable Shibambu. Honorable Ndlozi.
Thanks, House Chairperson. Honorable Gungubele, since the real minister is not here, you have been around for a very long time in this department. Have you read the bill that has been proposed? And if you haven't, you must tell us why. If you have, what are its details? I understand Comrade Mboweni maybe is an arrivalist, but when you have been here, have you read the bill? If not, why? If you have, what are its details? What is its central argument? Thank you very much. Don't tell me about staff. Chief.
Obekekileyo ophethe indlu yowiso mthetho. Inyaniso yona le mizamo yalo mthetho ifikile kwamamehlo. Ndaqwalasela. Ndisaqhuba ndiqwalasela. Yamkeleke lento xa sithi izimvo zethu sizawufika ngelazo ixesha. Enkosi mhlekazi.
Siyabonga. The next question will come from Honorable Nkonyeni.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable DM, the Post Bank has recently resumed the duties of paying social grants to deserving recipients, but have not been upgraded to the status of being a fully fledged bank. Why has the current legislation not been amended to allow for the Post Bank to become a fully fledged bank? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
The short answer is that in that area, we have gone beyond policy. The administrative process are on course. In due time, I think that answer will be attended to. Thank you.
Stogose.
Honorable House Chair.
Yes, Honorable.
No. This Deputy Minister is not helping us. He's here answering on behalf of the Minister. He's giving us no answers. There is nothing he knows. He's probably still trapped as a mayor in Ekurhuleni.
Honorable Ndlozi.
You are still suffering from mayoral consciousness. You don't know anything.
Honorable Ndlozi, please take your seat. As we continue to Honorable
This round
Liz.
is unacceptable.
No, point of
Honorable
order.
Liz.
Point of order.
Honorable Liz, can you please take your seat? Okay. There's Mama here.
Point of order, in terms of the rule of anticipation, the bill is before a committee and would come to the House. Does the question not fall foul of the rule of anticipation?
Thank you. No, thank you very much for that information that we got, Honorable Pando. Can you continue, Honorable Liz? Honorable Liz, continue.
Honorable Deputy Minister, Minister Mboweni had an illustrious career as the Governor of the South African Reserve Bank. Do you and the Minister support the ANC resolution to nationalize the South African Reserve Bank? And if so, what are the reasons for your support?
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I think our attitude to that question is just to restate that both from the resolutions of the ruling party, paragraph 27, and the constitutional clause 224,
we abide at all material times, unwaveringly and unequivocally with the independence of the Reserve Bank. Because that principle of the monetary policy framework being formulated by government and interaction with the Minister of Finance is a principle that is not under threat, which we will always abide by. That is the opportunity, we use that opportunity to restate to South Africans that that's the stance of the movement and the ruling party.
Thank you very much. We move on to question 192, asked by Honorable Makubele to the Minister of Environmental Affairs. Deputy Minister.
Firstly, let me indicate that South Africa is the third largest when it comes to issues of biodiversity. That's how rich we are. But we are saying as a department, we should translate this richness into economic opportunities for our people, as well as job creation. In other words, Chair, we are saying in order for us as a department, in order for us to fight poverty, silwe nobupa, silwe nongasebenzi, kumele sebenzise lamafa esinawo emvelo ukuthi abantu bethu bathole amathuba. Now coming back to the question is that the Department of Environmental Affairs creates work opportunities through the following programs. That is the wildlife economy, waste economy, ocean economy, as well as the youth environment services, the mass training services. These are all our programs. The youth community outreach program, the Groen Sebenza program, the DA Human Resource Development Program, and many more, like you're working for water, working for wetlands, working on fire, and so forth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Makubele.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable Deputy Minister, would you recall that the purpose of the National Biodiversity Economy Strategy was to encourage the participation of those previously marginalized individuals in the wildlife economy, especially the black majority population. This thinking featured prominently in the ANC's document titled Ready to Govern, ANC Policy Guidelines for a Democratic South Africa. Can you, Deputy Minister, outline to the House the key outcomes which have been achieved thus far with regard to the implementation of the National Biodiversity Economy Strategy? I thank you.
Honorable Deputy Minister. Can you switch on your mic, please?
Sorry about that. Yes, indeed, the biodiversity strategy has come up with key achievements. That one of the achievements is we were able to identify the land for transformation purposes. We have also made a breakthrough in capacity building for community structures, unlocking the potential of protected areas. You would remember that protected areas were there just for people to look at, but they couldn't do much about them. So we have tried to unlock that potential. The potential of game and wildlife ranching activities that relate to stocking, trading, breeding, and hunting as well. Another key achievement is the bioprospecting sector. These are the people that are searching,
Continue, Honorable Deputy Minister.
These are the people that are searching, collecting, harvesting, as well as extracting indigenous specimen, but we are also pressing on the issue that our people should only not be good for harvesting. They should be part of the wider value chain. In fact, Chair, the wildlife economy has created over 782 jobs through various wildlife economy projects. The department has also trained 25 community property associations. And let me just go back a bit to the bioprospecting issue.
Thank you very much. Your time has now expired. Honorable Shangwa, you have Honorable Singh after you. You have to choose who comes with the... Honorable Singh?
Age before beauty, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Minister, the devastation caused by the fires in Nyasna in 2017 and even this year is well documented. Unfortunately, it came with the loss of lives, and we offer our condolences to families who have lost people. Now, there is an organization, Deputy Minister, I don't know if you're aware of, called the Southern Cape Fire Protection Association that's involved in a project there to deal with the control of invasive alien plants and the challenges facing communities after the fire. Their challenge is that they have very limited financial and human resources to manage this environmental challenge. Now, my question will be, are you prepared, Honorable Deputy Minister, to urgently recommend that we turn this challenge or threat that the community face into an opportunity for young people and women in that area to be involved in the Working for Fire project, so that it will be economic upliftment for them and it will also deal with the threat of fires in the future? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Chair, we would do this, Honorable Singh, through our EPIP program, and this is done on a 3-year term, so I'm not sure whether they still have the opportunity to make an application so that it could be approved. But I would also assume that in this case, it's an urgent matter, so we could look at that as well. Thank you.
Stogoze. Honorable Pardon. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes, thank you. Deputy Minister, it's not just the youth and women who are struggling in South Africa. Can you outline your plan to advance equity, skills development, and the creation of opportunities for all South Africans? And I emphasize all South Africans.
Well, thank you, Chair. When I mentioned the youth and the women, I am aware that there is a need to empower the larger community. We do have such programs as well. For instance, we do have opportunities in the waste economy, which has no border whether you are young or old. We do have opportunities in the ocean economy as well. So we do have those programs within our sector.
Thank you. The last question will come from Honorable Ndlozi.
Thank you, House Chair. He wishes. So, Deputy Minister, this question was nicely phrased that the ANC is committed, but we're going to go with the supposedly committed, because we want to know what has been achieved so far. We have youth unemployment that is at 27.5%. Unemployment amongst women is at a staggering 29.5%. They are the primary caregivers bringing up children in this country. So what has been achieved? And don't tell us about job opportunities. Stop using these DA words, because they like to abuse us with job opportunities, with things like skills development, and they want to use our work. Where is it? Tell us what has been done. We want jobs, what business not opportunities, businesses, what development has been done. You see, we sit next to them. I can't wait for us to leave.
Thank you very
Tell
much.
us what
Your time
been
has
achieved
expired.
through these
Thank you.
programs. Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just make an example of the Youth Environment Service, which we...
Deputy Minister, continue answering because your
which we
clock is
term
ticking.
As yes. This is a national youth service program. It aims to provide employment. Well, I heard your issue of not opportunities. It also broadens environment and knowledge and practical skills. But let me come to the numbers. This program is implemented in the 9 provinces. And coming to the numbers, the project is implemented over a period of 2 years. A total of 1,170 participants have been recruited for the financial year 2018-2019. And then let us go to the mass training program as well. This program has commenced with implementation of a total of 175 mass training projects, which have already recruited 10,000 young people. And the training program is currently under implementation, includes, but is also not limited to conservation and environment, construction, that is in the building, plumbing, tiling, bricklaying, painting, waste management, environmental education awareness, landscaping, and so forth. And coming to the Groensebenza program, which is a very popular one.
Unfortunately, you can't continue with that one. The time is up. Thank you, Deputy Minister. We now move on to the next question, 147, asked by Honorable Hlengwa to the Minister of Finance. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The Reserve Bank has fully protected the deposit of up to 100,000 of all 22,000 affected depositors. In determining the broad parameters of how support would be provided, the Reserve Bank acted with fiscal support in a manner consistent with government policy. This policy seeks to ensure that management and shareholders of banks remain responsible for running of their banks and do not operate recklessly, with the knowledge that the government will underwrite losses that arise out of bad management. Put differently, government policy seeks to remove the moral hazard. The VBS retail depositors have one of the following options. The choice is completely at the discretion of each depositor. 1, withdraw all the funds at any ATM or at the facilitator bank branch. Transfer all funds to another bank account with any bank in the Republic of South Africa. Retain the funds in their facilitator bank account and use the associated debit card to make payments as and when necessary.
Ra leboga mhlomphegi. Mhlonishwa Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Deputy Minister, the bottom line is that if VBS came into existence to deal with a particular set of needs for the people of Venda. And now the situation is that that bank found itself in the hands of corrupt individuals and politicians who are grand thieves, to say the very least. And so the ripple effect of that is depositors, yes, may have access to their funds, but the issue goes beyond access to funds because it's the broader set of opportunities and realities which were there as a package access to financing for home loans, car loans, and so on. And so with the collapse of the bank in the manner that it has, and we are redirecting them to the big four, which are going to have a greater expectation of other things which may not be available. That is the kind of relief where the IFP then wants to know how do we assist in that regard to ensure that services broadly are available. The access to money is one thing, but there's a broader set of expectations that people have. And Deputy Minister, the unfortunate part is that you sort of walk the line yourself that you don't want the bank to be saved in the manner that has been narrated. So where do you stand insofar as rescuing the bank as well? Thanks.
Sithokoze. Sekela Ngqongqoshe.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I think we have said several times that we are committed to be part of the process of ensuring that the services that these people who are in far-flung areas, poor communities, that gave access, the services that gave access to these people who are poor, normally services that could not have been secured from the established banks, those services continue. But there's one principle that we keep on explaining, that VBS is a financial institution in terms of the law, of a particular law, and that law governs it as an institution. And we always say we wish it can be saved within the law. If indeed, when all assessments are done in terms of its balance sheet, its assets and liabilities, render it solvent in terms of the law, having ability to move forward, we want to support that. But if it does not meet those requirements as an institution, it's a different case of the law. All what we're saying, our commitment to ensuring that the people who are poor, we wish those services that they had an opportunity through VBS Bank can be accessed, maybe through different institutions if it's possible. But we support the salvation of VBS Bank within the law.
Thank you very much. Mhlonishwa Liz, isikhathi sakho. Continue, Mhlonishwa.
Ngiyabonga. Sihlalo. Deputy Minister, a 2016 reply to a parliamentary question by my colleague, Honourable Milam, revealed that there were municipalities that were making illegal deposits with VBS Bank. It seems, and I emphasize seems, that National Treasury waited some 10 months without taking any action to intervene before they wrote to municipalities to point out that the deposits with VBS were illegal. Has an investigation been undertaken in order to review the action taken by National Treasury and to identify any shortcomings that could have been avoided so that we don't have a repeat of this situation? Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
Honourable Liz, I think what we want to say with regard to this matter, we do have acknowledgement of the 2016 October incident. But in dealing with this matter, it had to be dealt with in a manner that there were discussions with the affected people, in particular the bank itself. We had an option here of saying, here is the money, is at the bank, it's wrongly banked here, get it out tomorrow. It had particular implications. So there had to be an engagement over time. And if you remember, the affected people, some of them who are implicated in terms of theft already here, had attempted to take the Treasury to court with regard to this matter. And that conversation and interaction occurred up to a point where Treasury realized that there was a liquidity, what to call, crisis. At that point, interventions were done. In our view, we are not going to run away if there are any weaknesses that get exposed by the final report with regard to Treasury. We are committed to deal with that. But as far as we're concerned, A lot of attempts were made to deal with the situation in a manner constructive and useful, but we didn't get the cooperations from those who were actually controlling the bank. And I repeat, if the investigation and the process expose particular weaknesses on our side, we are committed to deal with those.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable Tobias.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I think the ANC should in advance thank the curator for taking into consideration the fact to ensure that the depositors' money is actually saved, especially ordinary depositors that did not make a wrong investment as compared to councils. Now, Honorable Deputy Minister, as we are very happy that a relief has been given to the poor, one of the considerations that we think should be taken into consideration is whether is there a possibility to change the threshold of the monies that has been afforded the poor people who deposited their money into VBS, so that as interventions are made after the commission has reported and monies are retrieved.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister, I hope you...
I think I had the question.
Okay, thank you. Your clock is ticking. Continue.
Thank you very much. We are open to engagement on these issues, but the fundamental principles to us is that we want to be part of the process that ensures that the credibility of the sound financial management in South Africa is not compromised. So whatever useful exercise that can actually assist in improving the situation without taking us out of the historic sound management of the finances in South Africa, we are open to that.
Thank you. The next question and the last follow-up question is from Honorable Kubisa. No, you can come and check here.
Thank you very much.
Come and check. No, come and check. I can't cheat you, not me.
House Chairperson,
no, come. Honorable member, can we allow, because he came here, I wonder why they are saying aye. He came here.
House Chairperson, thank you so much. I think Honorable Slengo's question was directed to the plight of the poor, in actual fact, around the whole issue of the BBS, but also that municipalities invested a lot of money into VBS. And I understand, Honorable Deputy Minister, that at the moment, your department is working in tandem with the quota to try and ensure that these monies are brought back. But also it has been proven that some of the municipalities were warned about this by your department. At the moment, they are adopting what we call a lackluster approach. Some of them are not willing to give reports on how they will retrieve the money. What is it that your department, working in COCTA and other agencies, are doing to ensure that these sectors do respond to what has happened with VBS? Thank you very much.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Prof. There's a set of different role players in this matter. As you have said, Prof, there's municipalities, there are managers who abdicated their responsibilities, there are supposedly trusted institutions which abdicated their responsibilities. In a nutshell, what we're saying, if you read the Matao report, which is volume 1, by the way, there's another volume which is going to tell some interesting stories. All what we're saying, Prof, is that the extent to which each municipality is made accountable must be informed by the final reports and the legal situation it puts that municipality. In other words, if there are individuals in municipality who are found to have breached the law, they will be dealt with. both from the point of individual or an institution, or even if you go to VBS, as you have heard that there are tracks of money that went to series of people, their families, those who are managers. All those matters are being followed to conclusion. At the conclusive point, a legal analysis of what actions must be taken will no doubt whether you are ANC, whether you are UDF, whether you are commander something, or everyone will have to be made to answer in as far as this is concerned. Yeah.
House Chair.
Honorable Matthias.
Arise on a point of order.
Yes, Honorable
The Deputy Minister is lamenting about irrelevant issues. What he should be responding to.
Honorable
is who
member, what's
is
your
the-
point of
the
order?
point of order is who's the real enabler of the VBS scandal as we come to know
Honorable
it
member,
today.
no, I can't
And the focus must be on
That
the
is not a
enabler.
point of order. Thank you very much. Honorable members, the time allocated for questions has expired. Outstanding replies received will be printed on Hansard. Honorable members, we will now take the questions that were transferred from written to oral in terms of Rule 146. I now take question 3, number 3, which has been asked by the Honorable Menir to the Minister of Finance. Deputy Minister, do you have the documents, the questions? These are questions that were written, They were
Thank
written.
you. Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. A couple of years of difficult market conditions have put immense strain on the performance of print media companies in South Africa. Cumulatively, over the past 2 years, the total returns of the TSO Black Star Group are down by 78.22%, and that of Caxton and CPT Publishers Limited by 39.8%. Independent news and media is not different from the listed print media companies. Due to difficult trading conditions, the loan that IMSA had to settle during August 2018 has thus not been settled. The PIC is in discussions with this institution on the way forward to resolve this matter.
Thank you. Honorable Liz will take charge of the question as asked by Honorable Menir.
Deputy Minister, the loan having not been repaid, what are the current conditions under which the term has been extended? In other words, you're saying there are discussions taking place, but presumably there's some sort of agreement in place as we speak to allow that. Failing which, why has legal action not been instituted to recover the loan that is outstanding?
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thanks, Honorable Liz. They are our debtor at this instance. Having not settled the loan they were supposed to settle, the discussions are to ensure that they settle. If those discussions don't bear fruit, necessary steps will be taken.
Sithokoze. Olandelayo ngumhlonishwa Ndlozi.
Thank you. This infighting between media houses, not only to get access to PIC funds, but to also monopolize media platforms, news, papers, and televisions, as you know, is not good. It's not in the public interest. And employees' pensions through the state-owned asset manager is not being used for media development in society and the strengthening of freedoms of speech. Or the value of freedom of speech. So has there been any interest in how much other media houses have received. For instance, like Tiso Black Star.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister.
If I got your question, Honorable Rosie, I wouldn't say. I don't think that's the detail I personally have gone to. It's a detail that we'll be following as we continue to clarify this matter. But at this point in time, I cannot give you a detailed answer to that question.
Thank you. Honorable Abraham Tatiso.
Honorable House Chair, it is important that the repayment contract is in line with relevant legal principles, guiding extension of payment contracts to ensure that the PIC does not lose out in this process. We therefore request National Treasury to make sure that the PIC board protects the public finances and gain returns from all investments. Can you, Honorable Minister, guarantee that the PIC will not be a loser in this agreement? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Honorable Member, that is our obligation as occupants of the positions in which we are at the moment. Otherwise, we would be found wanting if we don't follow the principles you have articulated.
Sithokoze Mhlonisha Hlengo.
Umdala kangaka. Unjani manje? Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Minister, at the heart of the problems at the PIC, of course, was that grand looting took place at the PIC. And a commission of inquiry of sorts has been set up with a very minimal time frame or scope. Don't you think that given the fact that we're coming from a dark period of the Zuma years of corruption, that it would be proper to extend the scope and the time frames which have been stipulated so that we can actually get to the bottom of everything that has taken place there, because otherwise it becomes a cosmetic commission of inquiry or cosmetic investigation as opposed to being thorough. And so is National Treasury happy with them that terms of references provided, and how are you going to ensure that you actually do justice to this exercise? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Hlengwa. I think, if my memory serves me well, that those terms of reference go back, I think, 2015. And one paragraph at the bottom, if I quote it properly, says, if outside that, there is an information that requires you to go beyond, the panel is given, in my view, a scope to attend to the areas that you have actually raised. I say this believing that I've read it and understood it that way. I'll go back and check it and be sure if it exactly is the way I'm answering you now. If it's like that, if it's not like that, then we'll have to check how is that attended. Because.
Thank you. The next question, Honorable Deputy Minister, is question number 5, also asked by Honorable Mainir to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Question number 5, our response at the moment is that the Public Investment Corporation did not investigate its investment in IoTechnology solutions. As all based on the records at our disposal, appropriate investment and due diligence processes were followed when the transaction was approved. But however, if there is an information beyond the one we know, it's an information we are committed to attend to.
Honorable Liz will take charge of the question. Yeah. So is the Deputy Minister.
Yeah, so Babi. Minister, Deputy Minister, the problem here that arises is that the CEO of the PIC committed to investigate this investment. That was a public commitment made by the CEO of the PIC. And so the question then is, why did he not do so?
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Honorable Liz, we have to follow those facts. If indeed they are, as you stated, and some accountability will have to be sought with regard to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Olandelayo, Mhlonisha Professor Kubisa.
Linked to that, Honorable Chairperson, thank you very much. Linked to this one, Honorable Minister, there is some information that keeps on coming that PIC is commissioning some funds to a company that's doing a trans-border work, possible to Mozambique, of almost plus or minus $5 million. And is that allowed, if that be the case?
Thank you, Honorable Member. We've come across that information in public newspapers and so on. It's a question that I've asked that the PIC furnish us with the answer. And then it's an answer I hope not very too short, we must be able to get and probably give a feedback in as far as that part is concerned.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Deputy Minister, we are aware that all investment decisions by the PIC are directed by detailed client mandates, which are negotiated individually with each client in line with their investment profile and risk appetite. Also, that the client mandates must comply fully with the requirements of the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, with which the PIC is registered as an approved financial service provider. Will you please check with the PIC board if there are any concerns regarding this particular investment? Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, I didn't hear the last sentence. I want to apologize. The last one.
Can I allow you to do it?
Yes, I wanted to ask the Deputy Minister whether he will be able to check with the PIC board if there are any concerns regarding this particular investment, the investment which was raised in the question that we are dealing with right now.
That the question we're dealing with is to, so with regard to the where they said whether the Parliamentary Investment Corporation has investigated its investment in certain company, if not, why not, and so on. As I have said, with the records at our disposal, there is nothing that is questionable. But however, PIC, as you have already said, Honorable Member, is obligated to have what we call its own institutional mandate in line with the mandate of the clients. And as I've said to Honorable Liz, that if we get anything untoward and with regard to the commitment by the CEO to investigate, we will make sure that necessary follow-ups are done in as far as that aspect is concerned.
Thank you. The next question, question number 6, Deputy Minister, also asked by Honorable Menir to the Deputy Minister, to the Minister. Question number 6, yes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. For some logistical reason, we wanted to request in terms of Rule 144, if I'm quoting properly, that if this question could not be rolled over.
Can I be assisted? Okay, thank you very much. I'm advised that that is allowed. Honorable members.
Sorry, points of order. Madam Speaker, on what basis would that question be disallowed?
It's not being disallowed to start with. It is just a request from the Deputy Minister that it stand over. Rule number? Can we check on rule number 44? It's allowed. For 144, it's allowed. That is allowed. Thank you very much. Honorable members, that concludes the business of the day. And thank you to all the ministers and deputy ministers who responded to the questions today. The House is adjourned.